Hello and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Riche from the MHRT Network. We are going to go ahead and kick off this fantastic podcast for you today. We've had some very interesting developments over the course of this past week, including some wins, losses, and some injuries, sadly, which will likely define parts of our various team seasons. Quickly, first, I'm going to go ahead and throw over to Alex Givens here. You can catch him directly after this podcast on the Lightning Fast Fantasy Podcast. You guys got to do something that's a tongue twister. I refuse to say it again.
That's the point.
Fantastic. So the answer is no. And then you can also go ahead and catch his content over on Arrowhead Addict. Honestly, if you are looking for some Chiefs information, I highly recommend their site. And Alex has easily the best written articles that are there. Down directly below, you can catch. You can see Jack Kenna. He is pretty much on every Raiders podcast you can think of that matters. And he's also got the little gear icon because he's also the moderator in almost every single one of those chats. And then diagonally that away, Mr. Robert Garcia repping his Los Angeles Chargers. Robert, when you do get another pod going, let us know and we will go ahead and promote it here on the show.
Absolutely.
So going off what we have here this week, rather interesting. We saw some ebbs and flows of various teams. We saw some probably the ugliest football I may have ever seen from my Denver Broncos ever. And that's saying something because good Lord. Yeah, but at the end of the day, a win's a win. A win's a win, right? Like, a win is a win. And
win's a win.
Just win, baby.
So, and then this next week is may actually be the most vaunted rivalry in the AFC West out of all four teams, the Raiders and Broncos. I really do think that might be kind of the creme de la creme in terms of the rivalry between the two teams, which is funny because the vast majority of those that know me are actually Raiders fans as well as Broncos fans. But if I had to slice and dice, it's probably an even split, which is kind of funny in terms of those that follow me on X and everything else. So as we look ahead and kind of gauge a few things and all that kind of stuff, Alex, I want to throw over to you. There's been some interesting comments and rumors about your team, injury-wise, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to go ahead and get your take in terms of what's going on.
So you just want me to talk about the injuries right now or us beating the Chargers?
Well, injuries in your last game. Both. But, I mean, the injuries kind of go hand in hand with your last game a little bit, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, yeah, as I kind of alluded to, in case anyone missed it, Chiefs beat the Chargers in SoFi. And the game pretty much went, kind of like I said it would last week, regardless of the fact that, the Chargers JV squad was playing outside of Herbert. And their defense was banged up. I said these games are traditionally close, and it'll probably come down to a Harrison Butker field goal. Kind of close to that, 17-10. They won by a touchdown, but a little closer than you would have thought with how we talked about the game when we previewed it. There was certainly some things I liked as a Chiefs fan. Also, a lot of things that I think kind of give caution for concern moving forward. Big thing is we can kind of softly step back as Travis Kelce washed comments, Jack, because it wasn't a full blown Kelce day, but he did come out and 7 catches for 89 yards.
Is that because Swifty didn't show up and he finally concentrated on football, or what?
Yeah, it's got to be. So it's got to be that, I would think, or just the fact that they might have been intentionally not giving him the ball, and then kind of had to once Rashee Weiss went down, and he realized, oh, this guy still knows how to get open, and still knows how to do things. So at least moving forward, it's that was a good breath of fresh air, and it'll be nice to see if we see a further ramp up with Kelsey and his production. You also got to shout out, Kelsey had his 917th catch, which actually passed Tony Gonzalez for most receptions in franchise history. So record-breaking performance from Kelsey on Sunday.
On the Chargers.
Oh,
On the
God.
Chargers. Only missed a touchdown. But then on top of that, in what was it was a very sloppy – both sides were pretty sloppy in my opinion. And then it was a lot back and forth of just fighting in the slop. And then kind of like a phoenix rising out of the ashes, we saw a little glimmer of vintage Mahomes with a nice, I don't even know what it was, like 60-something yard bomb to Worthy for a touchdown. That pretty much, in my opinion, kind of like changed the landscape of the game. It was the deciding factor to it, but that kind of like put the clamps on, are the Chargers going to stay in the game or not? But outside of that, still very sloppy offensive game. Chiefs defense, played pretty well outside of the, perfect throw, perfect catch, touchdown to McConkey. You got to give Herbert and Ladd their props on that because the defender was arguably, PI in him.
Perfect coverage, yeah.
was arguably PI in him, and the ball was just so good and perfect catch that he's really nothing you could do about it. So, but outside of that, to only give up 3 points, and I don't even know what they gave up in total yard. Defense played pretty well. Clamped down the rushing game pretty good, but to be expected with all and Slater being out, and then Bozeman got hurt too in the game, didn't he?
Yeah, that might have helped us actually.
Yeah, a lot of injuries. Still, there's definitely a step back in the rushing game for the Chiefs side of the ball. I said going into the game, it was still Carson Steele's spot to lose, and that was evident, but he was on a very short leash because the minute he fumbled, he was not out there again. And we saw a healthy mix of P. Ryan and Kareem Hunt. Part of me thinks that that's just merely more so to the fact that was Kareem's first game back from being activated, off of the street in week 4. And I think moving forward, he'll take more and more of the lion's share. But he looked pretty effective. Averaged 4.9 a carry. Little glimmers of vintage Kareem Hunt, wearing the Chiefs red. Is a little weird seeing him wear 29, or I think it was 29 when he was 27. So it just kind of throws you off.
Who has
a little
27
bit.
right now on your team?
I can't. One of the corners. It's Watson. I think Jalen Watson.
Okay.
It's
Gotcha.
what it's. It's just
some depth piece.
Yeah, and then still pretty sloppy play from Mahomes, and he's been pretty open about that he needs to play better, and he just kind of makes very, I don't want to call him uncharacteristic mistakes, but it seems like he's a little carefree with what he's doing with some throws. It was I don't even, was that third play for the Chiefs, third offensive play for him, and he tries to throw some floater to Kelsey that just they clearly weren't on the same page, and then it's just right into I don't even know's hands for an interception that instantly puts the defense in a
it was Fulton, Christian
goal line
Fulton.
red zone situation. But it's just
I have a question on that, Alex.
Yeah.
So
I have an answer, maybe.
I think you probably will. Obviously Mahomes, he's got the benefit of his dad, who has obviously raised him, I would argue, the right way. I thought his political answer that he gave the other day, last week, was perhaps something that should go into training manuals for sports and athletes, with regards to answering, how, why isn't he selecting a candidate, for example, in the upcoming American election? And I heard his response,
Very
and
professional.
As a Canadian, I'm sitting there looking at that and be like, that needs to be in a video. His answer needs to be the one that they show every player to say, just do that.
Yeah.
just
when
like
you got that
ignore
little
it,
itch to
just
say
do that.
something, just do this.
Like, just do that, right? However, his wife is clearly in a different camp than he is and has come out publicly differently. That may well, there's no escaping it. Obviously, politics is politics and it's going to be polarizing no matter what. But do you think that given just the collective there in the public eye, and I'm sure Mahomes was none too pleased with the definitive response that was given by his wife, because it puts him in a tough spot and he had to answer questions like the literally perfect answer he gave, which was quite literally the perfect answer that he gave. So I'm not knocking Mahomes at all, actually, but it's a distraction. It's a difficult position to put him in. Do you think that there may be some tension in his personal life given the just difficult position that he may have been put in given his wife's spot? Do you think that might be playing a role? Like, personal lives matter in the NFL. These are players and they're humans after all. Mahomes is obviously exceptional at his particular job, and there is no denying that, but he's a human. So do you think that may be playing a role?
I mean, I wouldn't doubt that it does in some capacity, whether that's, a huge part of it or just, some part of it. It's certainly a distraction. And I mean, obviously he's somewhat a face of the league. He's probably one of the biggest, if not one of the bigger names that probably, on a more international level, people know. That's going to come with all sorts of different levels of scrutiny than even, the random player, on the 53 goes with. And, he's unfortunately been handed a little crappier hand than most in that regard, because so many members of his family are very newsworthy individuals in not the right ways. His dad seems to get a DUI every time he leaves the stadium, or our interviews intoxicated as hell after a game, and you got his brother doing all the stuff he does, and then his wife.
Well, it seems like his brother is mirroring his dad's behavior.
Yeah, that has to toll on someone. Just as you said, as a person, there's just no way that doesn't impact some things. But that being said, the dude is the ultimate professional. He's the almost borderline lab created quarterback from the aspects of what he does on the field and how he handles that stuff. Because he never lashes out. He takes all the blame. He never, makes some sort of backhanded jab comment that is just blown up for weeks of what he meant. Everything is very thought out and perfect. So he's certainly the person that's clearly been able to handle it up to this point. And I don't know that it's teetering to a point of really becoming a problem, because it's kind of been there ever since he sort of stepped into the limelight, so to speak. So I think more so the sloppiness is just coming from the fact that they signed Hollywood Brown, and he was going through all of camp with the intentions of being, this new focal point addition to the offense and adding this solidified veteran presence that we know is a deep speed threat. And then he gets hurt in week 3 or week 2 and is out for the season. And then, pretty quick turnaround to week 1, you got to totally change the approach you're taking, who you're using, and one of those being your first round pick rookie, which Andy Reid notoriously is difficult on his rookies, on how involved they are. So I think you're just seeing kind of the culmination of having to drastically change their approach, and his quote unquote guys that he's going to go to when they need to make a play. And I think that's pretty evident by in this play, it needed a huge third down. They throw the ball to Sky freaking Moore. Then it's the most perfect ball you could throw in that out route situation. It just goes right through his hands. And it's why are they even going to him? Because he's been totally irrelevant in the past year and a half. But it's just all these injuries that keep compiling they're going to have to, like, they got to find those next guy up. And so I think you're seeing Mahomes in certain situations probably force the ball to certain people in certain areas that he normally wouldn't if he had the full force of the
Right.
guys he trusted out there. So, and I mean, he's also been open of, like, I think they experiment a little bit more on stuff they can do earlier in the season, with the, like, mindset of knowing that they're going to be in the hunt later, and have that. Well, I know back here, like, I tried to get it over the top with this look, and the safety ended up getting it. I'm not going to do that now because Reed and him are open about that. So I think it's just kind of like a culmination of all those things. But I mean, a very long way to say I don't doubt that. If I'm him and my wife's going on saying this stuff, and I got my brother, like, dancing on people's memorials and assaulting people in bars, and my dad doing all this, like, yeah, yeah, that would
Alex, I
absolutely
got a
impact you,
couple
man.
questions for you on that. Do you feel, because I kind of saw this with Derek Carr and David Carr, working for the networks. I felt like, sometimes David Carr was the mouthpiece for Derek Carr. Derek would, play it cool, calm, collective, say all the right things. But then you hear, the points of view from his brother.
Yeah.
And kind of the same thing, do you kind of feel that way? And I don't think, and after, Patrick Mahomes' wife, kind of saying going red, and of course, Swifty being blue, I don't think they're probably going on double dates anymore. I think that's probably over with.
I don't know.
I actually think that's wrong. But Alex, go for it.
No, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That might have been more of a brand thing than anything. I mean, you never really know. Like, especially people in those, like, any person that has some large social following. I feel like you got to kind of weigh what they say, like 25%, because you don't know if that's something they were paid to say, or they're saying to pump something, or just merely bring attention to something they're planning to do a week from now. So, in this, I think some stuff's just said for the mere fact that it's going to produce clicks and engagement, and at the end of the day, money. That's just unfortunately the society we're in, where everyone's not really true to their opinions, or at least in my opinion, like, people aren't really true to what they're like. They don't really mean what they're saying. They're just saying it so they have the most outrageous thing on social media to get people engaged, and then, somehow turn that into money. That's kind of, I think Swift probably came out and said she's going blue because of it was going berserk on Twitter that she was going to endorse Trump. So I think she her hand was played. I mean, she kind of was backed into that. And I'm sure Mahomes, Brittany, I'm sure there was some undertoning reason for doing that. But I don't know. I don't know that it really impacts any relationship that they have, or, Kelsey or Mahomes have. Because they just strike me as individuals, and I think it's pretty evident by the fact of how successful they've been that they separate, business
Church and
from
state,
pleasure.
so to speak.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Where it may be all business with Kelsey, though. That's a possibility.
True. He is everywhere, dude. He's like Willie Mays Hayes in Major League 2, man. He's got a FX show, like his podcast, everything else.
Yeah.
Other than catching football still now.
I agree. I think Mr. Pfizer and T Swift there have like, they have ulterior motives in terms of how they do things and why they're doing things. It's just Mahomes has typically been like, let's put it this way. Travis Kelce reminds me a lot of Rob Gronkowski. They just have a very similar, like, they are the football.
He definitely
bro.
was. He early in his career too. He was like, they were kind of the same person.
Yeah,
Kelce would get a personal foul like every game. He'd fake do this in a ref's face if he didn't like the flag. It's like, he's definitely mellowed.
They literally seem like they are like the bros bro. Like they're like the stereotypical football player, which is, I am big, I am strong, I have always been the best, and I will continue to be the best yes, and they both have another brother, or in Gronk's case, 3, who are also NFL caliber athletes, which is just mind blowing. The Gronkowskis were able to just pump them out like that. but like besides that, I just think that you have the 2 Kelsey brothers that are just really interesting in terms of the way that they handle things and did things. They just seem like the bros bro. They seem like the prototypical or stereotypical football player, which is I'm going to maximize my ability to earn money while I'm in the league. I am going to do whatever I can to be successful and as successful as I can. And they're not looking at things from a political vantage point or anything like that. They're saying there's a paycheck coming in. What's your problem?
Yeah.
And that's it. Like there is no other math involved. It's I got paid, I did the thing. I got paid, I did the thing. And then it's up to them to then reconcile. Yeah, it's up to them to then reconcile the whole like moral and other nonsense that kind of goes along with it with the fans. They're literally just looking at it from a pure like I got an endorsement, I'm making money.
Yeah. And I'm going to be an athlete for 4 more years.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a very small window for me to be as marketable as I am now.
Yeah, they're like, I got this much time to make a whole truckload of money. Thanks, we're done.
Yeah,
like that's and Rob Gronkowski was very similar. He had a very kind of similar mentality, and both are far more intelligent, I think, than a lot of people give them credit for. Travis Kelce was a former quarterback, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was.
And Rob Gronkowski had a similar background, not identical, but similar background to Kelce in terms of how they came up. They are both highly intelligent individuals, despite the fact that a lot of people like to think they're both dumb. They're just not. Like they are very intelligent people.
You know?
Like they are smart. Like
that's their brand to be like the goofy party guy. You know, that's the brand they are pumping.
Yeah, and so I see them very much as the same type of guy. They're just having fun and trying to be successful while doing it, right? And I think that's the general approach that both of them have. But you made some comments about the Chiefs. Looking ahead at the competition that you're going to be facing this season, which is obviously not going to be, you're facing a pretty tough schedule, like it or not.
Yeah.
Injuries and everything else. You've lost Hollywood Brown. Kelce will probably be brought back with a little bit more of a prominent role later in the season, like he was the year prior, which is just seems to be the way you guys do it. Do you think that has the ability to be a successful recipe this season? And I'm prefacing it by saying, given that defenses in the NFL this year, more than any other year, have clearly caught up with the offenses. Like clearly. Like there is like hands down, pants down. Like you are talking, there has never been parity so much in the NFL as there is this season. And it took about 4 years, if we're going to be honest. But defenses have finally kind of really, truly brought things back to an even playing field, despite that every other bloody rule that gets passed is to try to, favor the offense. And let's just be real. That's fact.
Sam Darnold is 4-0. That should tell you all you need to know about parity in the NFL this year.
It's been like offenses, like you said, just across the board have been down. I mean, it's everywhere. It's much closer and more low-scoring games. But to your question about if it's like with all the injuries, I guess to bring this up, Riker will. Yeah, we both did that. Obviously that was another, huge negative from the game. Rashee Rice went down going for a fumble, a pick, then fumble. I think it was actually on the play that Mahomes floated the ball. That got
I had Marlon McCree flashbacks from that.
He floated it, picked off, tried to make a play, and in the process of making the play, rammed right into a fully extended Rashee Rice, right knee. Didn't look good. Was obviously he got carted off the field. He got carted off. But I mean, from watching the replay, and it's being someone who also blew out a knee. I was like, that's got to be an ACL. There's just no way about it. But from all updates we have had so far, as I kind of said in the pre-show, it's been confirmed that he does not have a torn ACL. So I mean, that's a huge glass half full for how the injury looked. I mean, great that it's not super severe. He's obviously going to be out because, from my understanding, they're still waiting to take some tests and know the full extent of everything, just with how swollen his knee is. And I
Alex,
think
you tore your ACL, right?
Yes, and MCL did both.
Okay, so that's actually where I was going with this. I've heard, and I want your confirmation on this because this is totally relevant for the situation with Rice.
Yeah.
I've heard that the ACL is a much easier tear and injury to detect, but the MCL with swelling is much harder to detect if there's been a tear or a rip or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Having gone through both injuries, again, this is I don't know anything of this, despite getting absolutely destroyed on field multiple times. I mean, I was hit by a car going like 45 to 60 kilometers an hour, and my knee was fine. So like I'm a unicorn in this regard. But like with your experience with those types of injuries, I mean, an MCL is still a season-ending injury in the NFL. It's just like you're gone for.
It just depends.
Anywhere from 6 weeks to 8 weeks, depending on if it's just sprained or like a minor injury. But most of these guys end up being gone for the entire season because football is so aggressive, especially for offensive players that get hit, that it's typically season ending just because of, you have to absorb impact. Like it's a fact. So with your experience, MCL, tear, sprain, pull, whatever, where do you see this on the sliding scale, assuming that they thought it was an ACL, but an MCL is probably more likely? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I was going to say, biggest thing is confirm no ACL, which, I mean, to me, and based on my experience, I would say that's an indication he will be back to play at some point this season.
Sure.
Whether that's 8 weeks, 6 weeks, 4, to be determined. But the one thing with the MCLs is depending on the degree of tear, it could be a non-surgical injury. Something that I was going to touch on that just adds to it. But depending on the degree of tear with the MCL, it could be a non-surgical injury where you're talking about just doing physical therapy and rehabbing it back to strength. So I mean, if it's an MCL, I mean, that's not a season ender. It could be just like he could have just severely dislocated his patella. And that's why it's so swollen and inflamed. Or it could be like a meniscus thing. But I mean, any of those are not signs that, he's done for the year. And, I think, like I said, the biggest thing is the confirmed no ACL, means that at least at some point, barring, I guess, a suspension for his other situation, that he's going to be back, which is, a huge blessing based on how it looked in real time. Because I think I even texted Robert Rashee Rice is done for the year. So
yeah.
Do we sign Kadarius Toney back? I don't know, but so I mean, there's certainly been a whole lot of speculation about Chiefs needing to go add someone. I'm sure they're doing their due diligence and determining if that's a move they need to make.
Tyreek Hill.
But I think part of it is one, figuring out how long Rice is out, because from what I've seen, it's at least a minimum of 4 weeks, and figuring out, okay, well, so that's really this next game and 2 more because they have a bye. Do we think we can make it through that with what we've got and not need to totally shake things up, or do they do it? And I think, part of that's probably trying to wait to see as he does these further testings and there's a more concrete treatment / rehab plan in place. But, I think we got a pretty big indicator, at least now, that, they're not going to go the whole season without Rashee Rice.
That makes me think of another question. So with, having the bye week, and if you're put on IR, is it 4 weeks or 4 games?
I think it's just
4 weeks.
That's 4 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 4 weeks. And the other interesting thing you mentioned there, Alex, and this is a super, I mean, the storylines are abound with the Chiefs this year.
It's crazy.
It's really interesting because, you've had a few boring years there, and then, enter 2024, and it's like, dude, we can't stay out of the bloody freaking news, right? Like it's insane.
That's what comes with the winning, though. It's
right,
part of the game.
I mean, Tyreek Hill has not made it a secret that he'd like to come back.
Well, yeah, he thought he was going to Miami to win all the Super Bowls.
Come on, no, he didn't. Not with Tua. No way he thought that.
Well,
no, but he tried to joke himself and trick himself.
He overplayed his hand. He admitted he overplayed his hand. He admitted that he listened to his agent and he regrets it. Actually, you can kind of hear what he's saying now.
Oh yeah.
Like he's quite vocal about it. I mean, on the sideline this past game, like, good Lord, that guy was angry. But and frankly, rightfully so. But
not a bad option, Sharif.
But here's the question. Ultimately, Alex, you have some interesting challenges that are coming up next season. You have the benefit of Rashid Rice being on a rookie deal, which means that it is less impactful to your team in terms of his inevitable, however long the suspension will end up being, depending on what happens, right? Okay. Yeah. So cool. However, I believe Tyreek Hill only has 2 years left in his deal. So
unless I thought he signed an extension again, but maybe I'm wrong.
But
I think it was just a pay increase. I don't think there was any extension to it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But he would be an incredibly interesting option for you guys, really, when you really think of it. Yeah. Like he's literally plug and play. Like if there is a plug and play dude, it's Tyreek Hill. Like it's like, hey, dude, you remember the play?
Yeah, without a doubt. He's a better. Clearly a better option than Hollywood Brown, who they signed for the purpose of getting back the Tyreek effect to the offense,
right?
In whatever version that is with him. So yeah, I just don't see how the Dolphins trade him back to the Chiefs after they trade. And they're going to want
at least another first, a third probably.
So, it comes down. I just don't think that's I don't think with the news and where things are at with Rice and the injury, I don't think that's the type of, I don't think they make that aggressive of a move.
There's a KC tax since, you're going for the three-peat. How bad you want? You got to give us a little more.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but like a 1, a 3, and like even like a
Xavier Worthy,
a 7 and future 4th or something. Like even when looking at that for Tyreek Hill, because like look at what you got for Hill from Miami. It was a first. Was it a first, a third, a 6th, and a 7th?
Yeah, something like that.
Like something like that. Like, even if you were to slightly overmatch what they gave you just by like a hair.
He's older now.
It doesn't, he's still fast though. Like the dude is so good.
Well, he's older and he's getting paid. And of course, the Chiefs picks aren't as worth as much as Miami's picks because Miami wasn't nearly as good. So,
well, but Jack, here's the thing. Miami's in a position where they need additional picks to rebuild. KC is in a position where they need a wide receiver to complement and work with Mahomes, and Tyreek Hill is kind of a perfect fit.
Oh, absolutely, a perfect fit for any team, really.
Well, one could argue.
I'll trade Devontae for Tyreek.
They got a first, second, 2 4ths, and a 6th for Tyreek.
God damn.
Right, but here's my point, Alex, is that like look at what you got for Tyreek, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah, which they turned into McDuffie, Karlaftis, Rashid Rice.
Right. But I would argue that the draft haul you got from Hill has set you guys up to be able to trade back for him. And I think that Miami is in a position where they need an extra first, and they need an extra third or fourth to try to package together to get a pull ripcord in case of emergency quarterback. Like they need it. Like they are in dire straits right now because their quarterback in a stiff wind gets a concussion. Right? And
we want
so
Tua to come back healthy and continue his career.
Operate the offense.
Right. But you need that elevated first round draft pick at quarterback because whether we like it or not, the NFL has turned into a quarterback driven league, which is the quarterback is required in order for you to win games. Otherwise, you will always be middling at some point. Like you either have an absolute, you either have an absolute elite level team around a quarterback and on the rookie deal who is mediocre and you can win. But the problem is that there's an end game to that. Eventually you hit a brick wall, right? Like you cannot overcome the poor quarterback play.
I agree, Mike.
It's not possible.
Agreed, Mike. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Richie, but I don't think that there's any way in hell the Dolphins trade him back.
Yeah, that's
nor do the Chiefs give up that amount for, the guy that they got rid of 2-3 years ago, who's only older, and is going to cost. That just puts him in a bind. Like there's a very select window, like range of guys that I think they can afford. With where their cap's at now. Yeah. Like Amari Cooper, DeAndre, Christian Kirk, like these guys with their that are the later end of their contracts, and maybe Deontay Johnson, because I don't think he signed anything new. So,
he just got traded though to the Steelers,
it's the Panthers. So
that's true.
They could be in dump mode at some point. But yeah, I think if those are the kind of players they target if they do make a move, because it will be, one fits with their financial constraints right now and is not, the pay the tax, for the three-peat. Whereas because as long as their defense is playing the way it's playing, they're going to be in every game. Clearly they have been up to this point, even with the offense not playing very well. And they got through a pretty rough stretch, the start of the year with the Ravens. Bengals, they always play the Chiefs good, but it's going to be a tough schedule throughout, obviously. But you got to feel confident with the way the defense is played, coupled with the fact that they were able to do it last year with the most penalized offensive line and the receiving core that led the league in drops. So it's been status quo for the defense, picking basically up where they left off last year and playing teams pretty much the same and being about as effective as they were in the red zone and giving up points. So as long as there's not a significant drop off in the defense's productivity, it's got to be close to, the Chiefs find a way to shoot themselves in the foot to lose, a lot of their games moving forward.
Sure.
I was just saying, I don't think maybe Amari Cooper wouldn't be a good signing for you because I think he leads the league in drops right now. So
yeah, but
somebody.
He's always struggled with that though, Robert. He's always had issues. He's always had issues. Jack can attest to that with the Raiders. I remember when he was with the Raiders, just because I was following the Raiders quite closely at that time as well. He really struggled with them. He had full games where he dropped 2, 3, 4 balls, and it was frustrating. Like a lot of Raiders players are saying, Cooper has games where he goes on fire, and then he has other games where he's just like trash.
Well, and that's the crazy thing about Cooper. Like when he was at Alabama, it's like he didn't have the dropsies, but he also, yes, he has the drops, and yes, he had a ton of drops on the Raiders, but he does have games where he just blows up. It's
his light switch goes on. Game-changing ability. It's just not always there.
He was top 2 route runner in the league for probably a solid 5-year run there. It was him, it was Devontae, it was Keenan Allen. Like it was pure route running. Like take everything else, just pure like how good on you on your feet, how quick are you moving in your feet, getting in and out of your breaks. He was borderline one of the best.
So, Robert, I want to throw it to you to kind of get the other perspective, since this is, in fact, a wild
Oh, the
West show
Chargers
here.
played.
Yeah.
So,
We certainly played for that first quarter.
Yeah, you
guys,
did.
I have two things I just want to cover off real quick before, Robert, I get your response. Number one, if you like the shirt that I'm wearing, there's a link below in the description where you can go ahead and get this exact shirt. I'm not going to lie, the thickness on the shirt is really, really high quality. They are excellent. A lot of merch that you get is flimsy and kind of, just doesn't last very long. This shirt is actually quite well made, and I highly recommend it. I bought some other stuff for some other pods I listened to, and I can honestly tell you that this shirt is excellent. I've had it for quite a number of years, for like what, 2.5 years now. It looks literally the exact
You
same.
gotta cut the
as day I bought
sleeves
it.
off, man.
I require it, but
Yeah, come on.
yeah, I just gotta pull one of those, right? But when you get the shirt here, it's got a real nice thickness to it. It holds up well in the wash. The logo holds up well as well, which is a good thing. Highly recommend it. On the flip side, we really want to get more people just like you involved in the show. The fastest and best way we can make that happen is to get likes on each and every one of our videos. So if you can,
buy
if you're
our shirts,
that's right. So if you're in YouTube, click the like button, hit that like button, get it shared out to more people. We really, really do hope that we can get more people just like you.
So, Richie, when are you going to make a Wild Wild West show?
What?
Get one with all the teams on there. To put Wild Wild West and have it all on there, one T-shirt.
Oh, you want the different logos?
Yeah, do Wild Wild West.
If you actually look at the shirt, Jack,
I can't see it. I'm on my phone. It's too small.
Well, that's a you problem, not a me problem. But if you
I
look
feel
at
like
the
there might
shirt,
be some licensing agreement.
Oh, okay. I see the Wild Wild West and I see the Broncos hat on there.
no, the
Like cowboy
logo
hat.
here actually incorporates all four of our
That's the
team's
Fallout
colors.
logo. That's just
That's
Fallout.
cool.
So we've
It's
got
very
all
cool.
four of our team's colors included on this image here.
I don't
The
see
powder
red.
blue, the orange, the
Oh.
red, the black, the silver. You got all four colors included kind of across different teams. The only thing that's missing from this what right here is the yellow from the Chargers, but you got the powder blue included here and everything.
New idea. We need new shirts. The back includes a headshot of all four of us. That really get the word out. Just
I like it.
For that.
You
I
see,
like it.
All right.
I'll bring it up. But anyways,
Put that in
with
R&D.
regards to everything else, guys, click that like button. I'd like to see some little thumbs up as the show goes on. Go ahead and click those likes. And if you're joining us after the fact, because obviously not everyone can join us live, go ahead and leave a comment below each of the videos. It really does help other fans of the AFC West teams find us online. Robert, your thoughts on your game? Obviously, not ideal for what you were hoping as an outcome, but
Yeah.
what did you think?
Well, I mean, I definitely also, pardon my voice, I'm still kind of getting over a little bit of a cold, so I definitely sound a little bit congested as Mama Gibbons makes an appearance in the chat. But it was DZ kind of nailed it right there. We went into this game kind of expecting to lose already. And I mean, the penalties, man, that's been a huge storyline for these first 4 weeks. Not just last week for the Chargers. I mean, that's something that absolutely has to get put under control. I think we were at like 9 penalties for like 50 something yards or so. Yeah, 51 yards. Yeah, 9 penalties for 51 yards. Those were 9 accepted penalties because I'm pretty sure there was some. I just lost my train of thought. There was
it's all right, Robert. Half of those are, again, look who you're playing.
Yeah, I mean,
they're always going for the other other squad.
Sure.
I get that. I get that point, but also like a lot of those were just like false start or just like pre-snap penalties, which were just, I mean, that's unexcusable. Like, and I mean that is unfortunately on coaching. Like this, for all the bad that Staley had, flags were really never that big of an issue. That's not to say that it was good, but I mean, it's definitely something that I feel like in this bye week, especially, Harbaugh is going to have to address with this team, because you're never going to be able to compete in this league if you're throwing up 9 penalties a game. I mean, that's just never, you're never going to be able to compete, and especially against the Chiefs, a championship caliber team, the back-to-back champs. You're definitely not going to win. And I mean, you had a 10-point buffer, still didn't matter. You still couldn't do anything with it. Offense without the 2 tackles was just non-existent. I mean, I kind of expected that going into it. The 10 points we did get were both off turnovers and short fields. So, it was more of what I expected. I guess what I didn't expect was the defense to play as well as it did. Obviously missing Derwin, but you saw that obviously with Kelsey's numbers. He cooked us. Not a horrible game. He's definitely had better against us, but I mean, this was kind of his coming out party this year. I mean, he went 7 for 9, 89 yards. Longest catch was 38. And I mean, yeah, Greg Roman, yeah, he used up all his good plays in those first 2 drives. The run game went nowhere. J.K. Dobbins, another, I'll just straight up say another horrible game. 14 rushes for 32 yards. I mean, that's,
and you called him the MVP of the NFL
after 2 weeks. Out of here, Alex! Get the hell out of here!
No, we suck again.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. I mean, like I said, I expected it. We're an outside zone running team, and if you don't have your tackles, you're not going to go anywhere with them. Bradley Bozeman, he got injured, but honestly, it might be good riddance. I was talking to another fan over the weekend, and I was like, I think we bring back Will Clapp. He would have done a better job than what Bozeman's been doing at center this year. But yeah, the O-line is just in shambles right now. We needed this bye week so bad, and I was really against it earlier in the season when we found out that this was going to be our bye week. But now, I mean, it just plays perfectly because there is no breaks. We go right back out and face the Broncos, and that defense, I mean, it's as stout as it comes, man. Like I told Alex that this is why I wanted us to sit everybody this week. Granted, nobody really came out of this game injured, but I just thought, A, there was no way we were winning this game without our 2 tackles, and B, you're going out of your bye from a divisional game into another divisional game. So,
hey, Robert,
yeah.
We've had 12 sacks across 2 games.
Like I said, we need the O-line back. So, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, Chris Jones, game wrecker. I mean, that dude's just insane, man. I mean, it's almost stupid at this point how, like, there's no closer position in football, but if there was a closer position, it'd be Chris Jones. Like, that dude is just, I feel like Andy Reid tells him, like, hey, just play like on 50%, and if we're still in a 1-possession game by the 4th quarter, just go off. Go get a sack. Yeah, go get a sack for us. It's gonna end the game. Like, go do what you do. I mean,
there's no one like him.
No, there's not, and it's so upsetting too. I mean,
he's a beast.
we said this in the offseason. Who's the more important piece to sign? Would it be the cornerback or Chris Jones?
Chris Jones.
It's not even close. Well, I think we all agreed it was Chris Jones. It's not even close at this point. That dude is the heart and soul of that defense.
Well, and you look at it like a Myles Garrett, someone who's on the top of his game, or a Chris Jones. You got to go Chris Jones because, I mean, he's closer to the quarterback.
If I had Chris Jones or Myles Garrett, I would trade Myles Garrett and keep Chris Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only edge rusher, or I guess pass rusher that I would have a really tough time with is TJ Watt. That is the only other one, just because he is as good of a game wrecker or game ender, and he has probably less help on that defense, even though that defense is still really stout.
That's stout.
The Steelers have other guys on their defense that actually supplement TJ Watt in the interior. They're not household names like a Chris Jones or someone in that caliber, but they are serviceable guys. They're serviceable guys in that middle section of the defense, which then allow TJ Watt to do what he does, because they have to be paid attention to. Otherwise, if they double or triple TJ Watt, then those other interior guys get to the quarterback anyway. So
that's the same case.
The thing that's unique with Jones is that, I mean, he's traditionally, by size and by I mean, every down work, he's an inside, D tackle. But when you get in the passing situations, he
He's
can
a
be
DN.
effective and elite from any position on the line.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's arguably one of a kind in that regard with how they use him, because he's not just coming off the edge. Like he kind of like, I mean, to some degree, not to be cliche, but it's like he's kind of playing chess, because he plays, 3/4 figuring out what these guys' tendencies are. And then when it's a big moment situation, you see where he directly attacks what he knows that person's not good at. And, he'll switch with the guy knowing, oh, I can beat this guy on the inside right here. We need to stop. Hey, Dana, you go to the edge. I'm taking right here. And I mean, he makes the play. And that's just the instincts and the athleticism, coupled with just, because he's 6'6", 300 pounds, like he is a massive human being. I mean, he's
like Aaron Donald,
elite, man.
where he can do anything.
Yeah. I mean, he's just elite, and there's no, like, he's not dropped off significantly. I mean, to this point, knock on wood.
So, Alex, I have Jack brought up Aaron Donald, and that was actually where I wanted to go with the panel here. And I want all of you to answer this, because I think this is a super interesting, thought experiment here. Aaron Donald had 1 to 2 seasons, give or take, where he was just insane in the NFL, like 20-something sacks from the interior or something like that, right? Like something stupid,
ridiculous,
stupid. But back then, there was no real D linemen that were interior that had he was shorter in stature, kind of slightly undersized, but incredibly strong.
Yeah.
Right. So he was
quick.
He was like the first, and quick. And he was like the first of his kind, right? So it was like offenses were struggling to figure out what to do with that. Chris Jones came in several years after that, but Aaron Donald clearly almost hit a cliff. Like, he just couldn't overcome it anymore. Like, he couldn't do it. Chris Jones, from my mental math here, is extending past what Aaron Donald did in terms of longevity.
Mm-hmm.
He's got all the traits of Aaron Donald after the offenses have kind of figured Aaron Donald out, but they can't stop him. So would that not, in theory, again, this is where my question comes in, would that not, in theory, make Chris Jones perhaps a better player, arguably?
So I got to ask a question on that. So how old is Aaron Donald when he kind of hit that wall?
I mean, I don't know. I think Aaron Donald really only hit a wall in his last year.
I mean, yeah, but even then,
he didn't have 20 sacks or double-digit sacks, like high double-digit sacks. Like Chris Jones. Let's just be real. Chris Jones in the Super Bowl, in my opinion, was the reason why you won.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, he made the play. Closer mentality.
No, but it's not the closer. It's the play he actually made before that. Like, this is the thing that so many people miss. Chris Jones made the play prior to the closing play that ended the Super Bowl. He actually pressured he made the first 2 pressures prior. Like that's the thing that like blows my mind.
Dump his pants, man.
Yeah, like the dude was insane. Like there's no other way of putting it. He was the reason why the Chiefs won that last Super Bowl. Mahomes played well. Chris Jones played elite.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
There's a difference.
My bad, Rich. I thought you were talking about the Rams Super Bowl and what Donald did to end that game.
No, Donald was a game wrecker in the Rams Super Bowl win, and there's no denying that. But the point is that Donald really had 2, if I'm not mistaken, years of where he was like 20 plus sacks from the interior.
He only had one 20 and a half.
But then he was on a decline after that, where he never really returned to that form where he still
played pretty damn good after that. After this 20 and a half sack season, he had 13 and a half and then 12 and a half again.
Right, but what has Chris Jones been at?
So
Well, I don't think he's been at that.
Aaron
but
Donald
does
in his
more.
career, Aaron Donald's career is 2014 to 2023. So 10-year career, he had 111 sacks.
Damn.
Chris Jones has played 9 years right now. He has 78 and a half.
Damn.
So yeah, he's only had 3 years. He had 15 and a half in 2018, 15 and a half in 2022, and 10 and a half last year after sitting out week 1. So I mean, I don't know. I think maybe he's getting
To me,
there.
it's not just about sacks. Like Chris Jones,
No,
in
yes.
my opinion, does. I feel like Chris Jones and Aaron Donald is like almost the perfect comparison because they played so similarly, and it was. I mean, there's literal photo and video
This is why
evidence.
I love this debate.
There's literal photo and video
I
evidence
love
of
this
Aaron,
debate because
Aaron Donald
they are
getting
literally the same
triple
player.
teamed. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. I mean, Aaron Donald just blew up in a bigger way, I think, with 20. And I mean, actually, he kind of did. He had 11 2 times before that. And I think
as a
the
DT,
stigma,
yeah.
too, with Aaron Donald is like, he moves around less than Jones does. So there's so many more clips of like 3 linemen trying to block him, and like he kind of has that stigma of the, totally unblockable player that the opposing offense has to have 3 linemen account for him because of how good he is. And I mean, you've heard linemen say that, where Chris Jones, he doesn't have that kind of aura about him. I think that's partially because he moves around so much. But yeah, I mean, they're the same player in my opinion. And I mean, they both brought the same value to their team and the same game-wrecking prowess, whether I think Donald's is a little more forceful, I'd say, because of like the sack totals and like the 4-year stretch that he was just a monster, like guaranteed, 12 sacks. Whereas Chris Jones, I think, is a little more nuanced. And like you said, Rich, like, he won the Super Bowl. And I mean, the last play, he didn't even make a hit or anything. He just got through super quick and Purdy freaked out and threw the ball like into the dirt. But I mean, that's still is a game wrecking,
Pressure
skill to have and a pressure, while albeit not a, cool, like, rip through 3 guys, sack the quarterback like Aaron Donald, used to do.
I agree.
Who's going to be the next Jones, DZ?
I wouldn't have a problem with either one of them.
Quinnen Williams.
No, I don't think so. I don't believe Quinnen Williams has the longevity of both of those guys. And frankly, I also don't think he has the versatility that those guys have. I mean, what we've seen from Aaron Donald and Chris Jones is incredibly unique. You've seen guys that have been, they were good in their first few years, but after like the second and third year in the league, they leveled up to such a level. Like, we're not just talking, hey, they're really good. I mean, it's like they are killing teams on their own. Quinnen Williams can actually be eliminated from games, as we saw with the Denver Broncos with certain types of linemen. Yeah. Aaron Donald and Chris Jones, there is never a game that either of them are eliminated from a game ever. That's like literally ever.
Since you guys got your computers up in front, what is that's so impressive. Those stat numbers are impressive for both those guys.
They are.
Is it right now? Is it Donald number 1 in NFL history? Who is it? Is it like the Minister of Defense? I mean, who's the number 1 defensive tackle, with sacks? I mean, that's just incredible. I mean,
that's why
I was kind of thinking the Minister of Defense.
The volume of sacks per year, right? So it's.
But doesn't he play defensive end though too?
Well, Donald didn't play defensive end. He played defensive
No.
tackle.
Minister of Defense, Reggie White.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But it's defensive tackles, right? Like
look.
Donald and Jones and Mr. Defense are unique beasts in the NFL because they literally came from the middle.
Tackle. This says most. No, that's D line. It's not Bruce Smith. Get out of here. I'm looking here.
You can't compare
John Randall.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Minnesota.
137 and a half. He's probably the most true D tackle player that I'm looking at on this list. Calais Campbell, 107. So Donald's second. out of D
Well,
tackles.
but Alec, Calais Campbell's a freak because the dude's like
6'7".
Still playing.
8 and still playing.
No,
He's
you want to
still
talk
playing?
about
Yeah,
you
he's
want
on
to talk
Miami.
about a guy who was a
Damn.
monster. Like that
Is
dude,
a monster, yeah.
That dude is a
Like,
monster. Like he is abnormal. Like he is not a normal person. Okay, the dude is like 6'6", 6'7", and like 3 something.
yeah, and still playing at 38. Whatever,
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever he
Like,
is.
Wild.
Yeah, how many defensive tackles play a 38?
Not
the
many.
dude's a freak. The dude's a freak. Calais
He's
Campbell
doing it
is
the
a
right
freak.
way too, because he's just, I think, the last 5 years he's only signed 1-year deals with the new team every year. So he's just collecting all the jerseys.
No, but Calais Campbell is the definition of the interior defensive lineman freak. Like he is special in terms of a player. He's also proof that certain guys are just genetically prone to be able to play at the NFL level. And he is certainly one of those dudes that can play at the NFL level at a high level for so long.
And he stays healthy.
When you look at
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Yeah, and when you look at Donald and you look at Jones, the thing that is unique about both those guys, it's not just defensive tackle; it could be nose tackle,
So yeah,
and still hold up, and being a smaller guy versus someone who's like, 6'5" and like 340 pounds, but they can still hold their own because they're both that strong.
to put it in perspective,
I just heard.
Aaron Donald is 6'1", right? Like you say, 6'1",
Yeah,
280. He is 16th all time in career sacks. So with the likes of J.J.
But Alex,
Watt,
did you know how much he benches? Aaron Donald benches 500.
That's fucking insane.
No, I know, but I think, that puts it into perspective. We were talking about where he's at. I mean, he's second all time, I guess, if you want to go out of pure D tackles, 16th all time. I mean, all time. So, I mean, that's pretty good. Pretty damn good.
Well, that is awesome.
And Alex, the other thing to remember there is that Aaron Donald played at a time where offensive holding was called less than it was when those other guys were.
It was way chippier time.
Yeah, it was.
That's why he trained with knives.
It was like, what do you mean the offensive lineman held? I what? Huh? And yet Donald still was able to succeed to that extent. And of course, there's no one more critical than an offensive lineman than I am. I truly mean that. Like I'm pretty bullish on offensive linemen and their play. I think it's trash at the NFL level, generally speaking. And on top of that, Garrett Bolles. I don't know. I get confused.
Holds.
Bolles and Bolles.
Like he is not a left tackle, a quality left tackle at the NFL level. He just grabs onto dudes' jerseys and gets away with it because the NFL is just letting it go. But we need to get going on to some other stuff in the game here. I'm going to quickly review my Denver Broncos, and then Jack, I'm going to throw over to you. And then obviously, Jack, we need to talk about our matchup coming up. So
absolutely.
Real quick, my Denver Broncos, there's a few things that I have not led you wrong on since things have gone on. One, Alex Plawjewski, I don't know, I can mispronounce his last name. It's got a few too many syllables for my liking. But Alex P, he is our right tackle.
Poletsky.
Sure, whatever. Anyways, Alex P on the Denver Broncos. I predicted as soon as we announced that he was going to be starting at right tackle. I said it here all along. He will take the job from McGlinchey. And it is my prediction and has been my prediction since the beginning. McGlinchey will not have a job to come back to. No. That dude is killing it.
Got like 40 million though.
Like, I don't care. Like that's an unfortunate backup situation, but at the same time, if your goal is winning games, like there is no comparison between A and B. I'm sorry, there just isn't. Like, so here, let's just put this in perspective for those who are not Denver Broncos fans. I don't expect everyone to know these numbers, but these are important things. Number one, the Denver Broncos gave up a whole boatload of sacks in the earlier stages of the season. That's why we went 0-2. Since Alex P has been in, the Denver Broncos have given up exactly goose egg number of sacks.
Wow.
Wow.
That is impressive.
Thanks. I'm done.
Yeah, definitely no job to come back
good.
to.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
like this is my point, right? Is how many times on this show have we all collectively spoken about the importance of having quality bookend tackles on both of our teams? So, like the Chargers,
healthy ones.
Healthy ones at that too. Yes, agreed. Well, I mean, look, fluke injuries are going to unfortunately happen. We need to see if this is a trend for your team, Robert, with Alt.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like quality tackles on both left and right side allow you to seal edges and allow outside runs, which typically allow for longer runs down the field, because you're able to have a running back going against a much lighter cornerback or safety, which typically lands them in longer run yards, right? Like it's a fact. Like it's just the way things work. However, most runs that are successful tend up going up the middle because they're able to hit the hole faster, right? So it's like an A and B kind of comparison piece. But with Alex P at right tackle, we have had 0 sacks. We've had a much more successful run game. I think that he will improve in pass pro. It is my prediction that he is yet another undrafted free agent rookie that the Denver Broncos have found in their scouting department, which is like, let's just put it this way. Right tackles and left tackles at the NFL level in the upper 90th percentile. This is not even like just like hyperbole. This is just a fact. The most successful left and right tackles are found in the first round of the draft.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Great.
Like this is a fact. This is a fact.
Yeah.
And yet
One
this
of the
dude's an
most-
end-
I was gonna
Yes.
say one of the most direct translations from college into the NFL.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's like you get them in the first round, and actually, furthermore, the most successful left and right tackles are typically found within the first 15 picks.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to look at the height, weight, speed of all these guys.
What?
I mean, look at the height, weight, speed of these guys drafted in the first round. They're huge. I mean,
Well,
you can't
not
teach
huge
size.
guys.
And
What's Joe Alt?
These guys are
6'8"?
freaks. These guys
Joe
are
Alt
freaks.
6'7".
So Joe Alt is 6'7" and runs like a 4.5 40. It's stupid.
see,
No.
he can move, like that.
He doesn't run that fast.
He runs like a
Or
four.
say-
he runs like a-
he's got a lot of
See, I can tell
technician
you
though with him
now.
too.
He's
And he's strong as
6'9",
an ox.
according to Wikipedia.
6'9".
They said what?
Wikipedia has him at 6'9", 322, and he ran a 5.05 40, which might as well be a 4.4 for lineman. He's 320 pounds, and he ran a 5.
I didn't realize linemen's
But
40
Jack,
times started with a
that's literally
5.
my point, though, right?
Yeah,
Which is
dude.
like that is a freak. Like I don't care. I don't care who you are. I don't care how you assess things. When you have a dude who's 6'8" or 6'9", and if you're debating between an inch at that height, it's irrelevant. Okay, like if that dude is able to move that quick and is that nimble and is that flexible at that height, size, weight,
His
and
cone
speed,
drill is 7'3". That's pretty good for
that's high.
someone
Like that's like that's
someone that
elite.
big.
Yeah.
dude. That's
So-
pretty good.
God, please come back, man.
But
So
that's my
big.
point, right? Like Jack, I'm agreeing with you, but just in a different way. Typically
Those dads
speaking,
are
guys that
6'2".
are that test that well or do that well, they don't make it outside the first round, right? They just don't. They just
Well,
don't.
it's a premium position too.
Yeah. And so finding a right tackle out of all positions in the NFL, a right tackle as an undrafted free agent who is clearly starting NFL caliber, even if it's not even upper echelon, and that's yet to be seen because he just started 2 weeks ago. Right?
It's like winning the lottery.
Right.
Like you may as well buy a lotto ticket and say we won. Right? Like because like that is insane to get a guy at that stage of the draft,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
just
so
say, just to follow that up, Richie, I was trying to find a bit like right tackle bust just to put it in perspective, but I found this fact that says offensive tackles chosen in the top 16 hit on 70% of the time end up being like
Bust.
a hit. No, not a bust.
Unless you're the Raiders drafting Robert Gallery.
right?
So-
Yeah.
70% of the time, if they're taken in the top 16 picks, they are as advertised, if not better.
Right. So all you're doing is proving my point, right? Like
Yeah.
literally.
That's what I was doing. I was
And for
helping
the
you.
record, My hands are here. I didn't even look that up. Right? Like, I just know. So that's the point, right? Which is you're looking at a position that is so insane, and DZ literally nailed it on the head. That's unicorn territory, and I agree. Like, that is literally unicorn territory.
Well, yeah, and look what Harbaugh said. Harbaugh said they're weapons. They're weapons.
They are.
So,
Well, I mean,
They are
look how
because-
different the Chargers offense looked with a healthy Slater and Alt versus
Right.
None of them.
not. Yeah, they couldn't do anything.
Right. And so imagine being able to go and target skill position guys that are higher caliber because of their athleticism, and getting a dude that would typically be required to be found in the first round. And not just the first round, in the top 15 picks of the first round,
First
which
half.
is rare, which is rare air to begin with, right? Like 15 picks every, like, and how many of those dudes are busts to begin with? Like 50% of those guys in the top 15 are busts anyways. Jerry Jeudy's a perfect example of that. Bye, Felicia. But anyways, with regards to those types of guys that are taken in that early stage of the draft, those guys are typically we'll call it a 60-40 in terms of like hit versus miss. 60% hit, 40% miss, except if their name is Jerry and last name Judy. But then you end up with this guy, Plazowski, who is a right tackle, who's an undrafted free agent. I told you guys at the beginning when we were first talking about the season, the dude played at an unbelievable level in the previous, not 2024 preseason, but the 2023 preseason. He played at a level that like turned my head and said, yes, please. He reminded me of Quinn Miners. Like, he plays that way. He plays at that level that is like sneaky good. And I actually predict that if he continues to play this way, that the Broncos will attempt to extend him this offseason, because every year that the dude plays the way he did means that his value is going up by another, $6 million. So you may as well extend him now while you can, because the right tackle position is such a premium position in the NFL that you're better off getting a guy, paying him earlier, but then paying him slightly less over the duration of the contract, because it's more beneficial to your team. And a right tackle is such a premium position at the NFL to seal those edges between the left and the right tackle. The answer is yes, every single time, no question asked. And so I predicted that early on. I will stand by my prediction regardless of what happens. And I believe that we're going to see him break runs, Jack, against your Raiders, and you're going to see him in full swing this past season. You also have to remember that Quinn Miners is playing the same side. So you have two maulers on the right-hand side, and I think you're going to start seeing more and more runs shift to the right. And you're also seeing the Broncos play more and more, again, as I predicted last show and their show before, in 12 and 13 personnel.
That'll be an interesting matchup, because that's the side that Christian Wilkerson plays on. So that'll be fun to watch.
Right. And that will be fun to watch, because it'll be very interesting to see in terms of
How it adds up.
With Max Crosby likely not playing.
It's like Max said he's going to play, but I don't know. The coaching staff may hold him back. He'll play if he's got his leg amputated. He's like a Jim Otto. You cut his leg off, he'll go out there and hop on one leg and try to go play.
He reminds me of the Black Knight from Monty Python.
Yeah, right. Oh, it's a flesh wound.
Yeah, it's a flesh wound. He is the, like, look, as much as it pains me to say it, the Raiders found the guy in Max Crosby. He is the guy.
Well, yeah, he's a 4th round draft pick. That was a steal.
Right. Like, to talk about a unicorn, DZ, Max Crosby is the literal definition of a unicorn at the NFL level.
And isn't that the same draft that they took Clean Farrell?
That
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why. That's why that draft wasn't a complete waste because you found Max Crosby.
Yeah, it's like on that draft it was Max and it was the wide receiver Renfro in the 5th round.
Sure. Yeah, he gave you
So-
some solid years
He
too.
gave a couple good years until he got that concussion.
And he got Josh Jacobs, right?
Yes.
No, Josh Jacobs was the
No, he was
year
the
they
year
had
before.
3 first round. That's when they traded Khalil Mack
2015.
Yeah, I think that's
and they got rid of Mari Cooper. So they had 3 first round draft picks and 2 of the 3 were busts.
Yeah, Leatherwood, Farrell.
Yeah.
Jacobs,
Oh my God, Leatherwood.
I forgot that was the year you guys.
But
had
anyways,
3
guys,
first.
I want to quickly close out the Jets Broncos game. We saw a lot of what I predicted. It was going to be a slugfest. I did.
That was 10-9. What'd you have for the score?
Pardon me?
Oh, it was a 10-9 game. That was really low scoring. So total defense.
I actually thought it was going to be slightly higher scoring than that. I had it as like a 21, 26, 24 kind of point game.
Oh, wow.
But to my defense, I didn't know a hurricane was coming when I originally made my prediction.
It's true.
And the reign of a hurricane is obviously a little bit different than normal. You had 10-mile-an-hour winds, which impact the throwing of the football. You have a torrential rain.
Zerline, Greg DeLeg missed it, man.
Right. Well, and so did Lutz, right? Like, this is the kicker, right? No pun intended. Which is, dude, it's a dad joke, but I didn't even mean it. That's great.
That was an unintentional dad joke. The best.
Yeah, those are the best. They really are. But the point is that for everyone that wants to push on the Broncos did this and the Broncos did that, and that was so stupid. Well, the reverse then must also be true, which is the Jets allowed the Broncos to march all the way down the field, and Lutz was that far away from putting the game away completely. So at that point there, I think that there needs to be a bit of an argument against the coaching as a bit of a wash, right? Which is, how dare the coach do that? It's like, well, let's be honest, both coaches did the same thing. So, zip it, right? Just move on. Right. And what we ultimately saw was, as we alluded to earlier in the show, I think it might have been you, Robert, that made some comments about the Broncos defense. And again, if we all look back at my tape on the show, my number one thing that I said is the Broncos defense is going to be scary good. And a lot of people are underestimating the Broncos defense. I was very clear about that at the very beginning. And we are.
Surtain has been clamping everyone.
Well, especially since Singleton's out. I mean, Singleton was playing all pro before he got hurt.
I saw a stat on Surtain. I was like, damn, I didn't know it was like that.
Well, I want to take credit for that one as well, because I said you got to pay that man immediately, and he's going to be the best corner in the league, and he's certainly playing like it right now.
Surtain has been good, but I think what a lot of you are underestimating.
Weekly victims list. DK only gave up 29 yards. George Pickens only 16. Mike Evans only 8. Garrett Wilson 22. So he hasn't allowed 30 yards to a receiver yet this season. That's
oh man, that's gonna hurt this week not having Devontae.
Bye Lad McConkey.
The other thing to consider as well is that what's actually hurt most other opposing offenses isn't Surtain per se. It's the fact that Riley Moss has elevated to like Trey McDuffie level or higher, depending on what stats you look at. Like Riley Moss was a healthy scratch in almost every Broncos game last year. And yet he comes out this year and looks like he was like an under the radar all pro. The Broncos were just like, evil Knievel, like I have the answer to for everything on the roster already. And then of course the other flip side there is McMillan has been a lockdown slot corner. And this is what I keep on saying to everyone that was like doubting the Broncos defense, which is when you have a group of corners that can cover and kind of like put the clamps down on receivers like that, and when Simmons, who is a selfish football player, I'm not sorry at all for saying that out loud.
Sorry, not sorry.
I'm sorry, but not sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
He is
sorry,
a good.
but not sorry.
He's a good football player. Don't get me wrong. He is certainly statistically in a higher caliber of football player. But when you play selfishly on a football team that requires team play, the best players and the best teams, the Patriots are actually a great example of this. For all those years that they were Super Bowl champions, or even made it to the Super Bowl, like was it 13 years or something like that in the Super Bowl or something stupid like that? That like case in point made. If you end up with a bunch of guys that are moving in the same direction or pulling in the same direction with one goal in mind, which is winning, you will typically do better, right? Whereas if you have a selfish player who says, I'm going to grab the pick, or I'm going to pick off Mahomes because that's the guy and it'll make me look better. Yeah, you'll get stats, and yes, you'll get some accolades, and yes, you'll probably get a good contract, but you probably won't win much because you're only looking out for yourself. You're not necessarily looking out for the collective team. And there can only be so much of that can go around before it ends up coming up and biting you in the rear end as a football team. And I think we're seeing at least 3 of the 4 teams in this division come up with that as a general mentality. I think the Raiders are a couple of years away from that right now. Jack, that's just my general opinion. I think that your head coach has done a few things that kind of show that
head scratchers for sure.
Yeah. And so I just think that there's a few instances that have occurred in the last few days that have kind of solidified my concerns there. But when you look at the team play and when you look at players that are coming in for Sean Payton, not because of Sean Payton, but for Sean Payton, I think that shows the level of coach. We see Andy Reid with similar players. We see Harbaugh with, not as many right now, but it's only his first year back in the league. So we have to give him some time to kind of to let that boil over and bubble up. And I think when you're looking at the 3 teams, myself, Reid, and Harbaugh, where they have that reputation, I think that says a lot about them as coaches and the fact that professionals are willing to sacrifice stats to win. That is a unique character to bring out of a football player, which is, I will not make you look as good, but damn, we're going to do well as a result of you maybe not looking as well as you could, because we're looking at this not as an individual game, but as a team game. And that is a unique trait from any coach. I don't care who you are. I don't care what team you're on. I think that the Chargers have it in their coach. I think the Chiefs clearly have it in their coach. Like Tyreek Hill doesn't make comments on the Dolphins like he has in the last couple of days, unless Reid has that type of power. Sorry, but that's just a fact. And I think that the Raiders are still trying to find that guy. Frankly, Jack, if I'm going to be honest, I think John Gruden was closer to that guy than AP is, but that's a discussion maybe for a different day.
No, at this point, yes. The thing with John Gruden is he would take control of the first round. And we just talked about some of the first round draft picks. He never got it right. And Mike Mayock took over and he did a lot better. There's still, a couple Mayock guys still on this team. But yeah, he needed to stay out of the drafting process for sure. And so are we ready to start talking? I'll start talking some Raiders here. So it's like, I will say this, even with some bad coaches, like in McDaniels last year. So I'm going to say this until it's not this. So our matchup 8-0 until we lose one. I'm going to say we're not going to lose one, but if we can win with McDaniels in there, I think we can win with AP. And AP, we talked about every single week. Start off with this cat. bad calls. Like you're calling, like when we play the Chargers, we're like on our 35 and it's 4th down and we go for it. But yet we're like on the 40-yard line and it's 4th down and we don't go for it and we punt, making bad calls, bad decisions, bad timeouts, not running everything well. When I watched the game this weekend against Cleveland, it was the first time I'm like, wow, he finally dug in. He got these cats motivated. You got 7 starters out, and then you lose an 8th starter during the game. And he got these guys motivated and played and won. I said it was going to be a 19-16 game. It was 20-16. I knew it was a very sloppy game.
So close.
Yeah,
Sloppy. Well, this is how close it was. It really came down to one play in the way of Amari Cooper catching that ball. And he went, 82 yards for a touchdown. But there was a holding call on Christian Wilkerson. And it was called back. And then the Raiders stopped him. So one play could have decided that game. So, yeah, sloppy. But I did see, some good things. Like, Richie was talking about his offensive line. JPJ got to play a full game and goes in. And he played well. And then we had another rookie who Tom Telesco drafted, which was the one draft pick the Raider Nation was like, their jaws dropped. We're like, what the hell are you doing? It was our 3rd round pick in DJ Glaze.
Special.
3rd round, and he's rated, by all the experts in a 6th round. But he's got, excellent pass blocking ability. He came in, and Mumford's been there for 3 years. He looked better at pass blocking than Mumford did. So this was the first time the Raiders' offensive line actually got any type of push. And we had our biggest running game of the entire year to help out, not having Devontae in that game, not having Max, Kuntz, Epps, Diablo, Michael Mayers, any of those guys. And the running game looked better. And now it's like, I don't think Zamir White, I don't think he's going to be starting anymore. I think Madison has taken over. Yeah. I mean, I think Zamir had 12, 13 carries for 50 yards, and Madison had 5 carries for 60 yards, 12-yard average.
I have him in 4 fantasy leagues, Jack. I'm aware.
Oh, you have which one?
Zamir. Okay, I bought it into all the offseason hype. Yeah, I haven't played him.
Bench him.
Yeah,
I just want to come out and say that this is. I had mentioned this on a previous show before the offseason. This was when Captain Jack was still on, and he had mentioned, Zamir White, this Raiders defense, the new head coach. It's going to be, Raiders are going to sweep this division. It's going to be the Raiders division to lose. And I'm like, there's a lot of unknowns in that predicament or in that prediction.
There's a lot of
in the conversation I think I had with Cap on that is when Zamir comes in the last 4 games of the year, and you played a whole NFL season. Everybody's beat up, and he's fresh.
Yep.
He's fresh.
And there's no tape. There's no tape on him. What they're watching is that is the tape that you're going to get on him.
They're watching what they saw from Georgia pretty much. Yep. So yeah, it's an improved offensive line, which is good because, again, since you're back, same thing with your offensive line is the way I see with my offensive line. Jackson Powers Johnson is the real deal. I mean, he's been hurt since the Senior Bowl, doesn't go through training camp, comes in, and he plays dominant. I mean, he just beats up on people. And then I said DJ Glaze, who was the 3rd round pick, who was rated as a 6th round draft pick, comes in and plays better than Thayer Mumford. And Jackson Power Johnson can play either the zone or the power. DJ Glaze is actually better suited for the zone, where Mumford was better suited for the power. So I see a better, pass defense. And, even though, Garrett was hurt, he got 2 sacks, but only Glaze only gave up 1 sack to Garrett. And I can't say there's almost a better defensive end, even though, yes, he's got a couple nagging injuries on him. But that's pretty impressive for your very first start. So same thing like your offensive lineman. So I'm interested to see that, happen. The Raiders finally got the most rushing yards they've had for the entire season. So you're not relying on the pass. What I saw Cleveland do is I saw them kind of shut down Bowers. They're putting more eyes on him since Devontae was not in the game.
Trey Tucker.
But I will say this, hope you still have him in your league there, or Alex.
I do. I started him in Dynasty
Tucker-
last week. I look like a genius.
Tucker's now going to be a number 2 wide receiver, and it's kind of funny. And I kind of see the way they're kind of molding this team. If we'll talk about Devontae here in a moment, guys, but I'm seeing them kind of molding the wide receivers kind of after your Chiefs, going for a good tight end, wide receiver that can just burden the field, and another receiver that's got, he's got good hands and
route running possession guy.
Exactly. And so I see they're doing that type of modeling, which most teams do. When you got teams that could win to the Super Bowl a couple times, you're going to kind of model what's going on there. So Tucker. So 5 receptions, 41 yards, touchdown, and 3 rushing yards.
Yeah.
So
pretty good.
We may as well get right into it, Jack, with your comments there, which is
let's do it. So again, going back to my first thing was AP. Gutsy game. I took some notes when I was watching the game, and I'm like, this is going to be a game from him just saying a business. It's a business decision. I'm like, wow, why would you air that public? Why would you not keep that private? Who are you talking about? And we talked about like who we thought he was talking about. Either, guys are going to lose their jobs. Guys are going to get benched. The team is either going to be divided or there's going to be an increase in play. And what I saw out of that game, that was the best game pretty much. And besides that quarter and a half against Baltimore as a whole, that was the best game they played this year. Now, with that being said, and Jack Jones, they sat him down for 1 quarter, which is AP's guy. He's known him since he was a teenager. So he's like, hey, I got to give you a timeout. Go sit in the corner, for a quarter.
But Jack,
and come back in.
Hold on. On that note, that's who, in my opinion, who AP was talking about.
Well, no, that's where we're going to kind of go with this, which is kind of interesting, which is kind of transpired. And what everyone in the NFL land is like talking about right now with Devontae. So it was kind of interesting that, after that was said, Devontae went on air and said he agreed with Antonio Pierce. People taking plays off. And then mysteriously, I thought it was kind of a bogus injury because let's go back to kind of like AP. AP came over to the Raiders to play with Derek Carr. Derek Carr and McDaniels don't get along. Derek Carr gets cut. Then, in the 2023 preseason, Devontae doesn't play any preseason games, just like he's never done in Green Bay.
Correct.
Now, AP had his son, so he missed several weeks of preseason. But when he came back,
Devontae.
This is his words. I prefer not to play in the preseason. Antonio Pierce says, if you're healthy, you're playing in preseason. Oh, mysterious foot injury. So he misses the 1 preseason game, doesn't play. And then after the business decisions, then it came up with the hamstring. So he didn't play in Cleveland. And at first, I think a lot of people said that, that was kind of a bogus injury. So that might have been his punishment from AP. But Diana Rasusi, it's like, I don't know how you say her name. Rossini, she came out today and said, nope, that's a legit injury. He has actually got a hamstring injury. But there's button heads right there.
But would he play through it if he wanted to be there is the question, I think.
Well, if you ask Max, he would say, your ass better be out there.
I'm like so happy right now.
I'm
Raiders fans are starting to see what Charger fans suffered through for a decade
for years. Yeah.
God.
Took 4 weeks.
It's like the only silver lining of this season so far.
No, actually, so far, Tom T's draft, I've liked it. I said, you got your first 3 picks. They are starting now. So
I can't. Hope.
Exactly.
I would hope.
It's starting.
You're 4 weeks in. Let's give it some time here. We'll see what happens as the season goes. But I promise you right now, it's still early enough that you can look at it and be like, oh, it was a good draft. but you can't properly rate a draft until about 3 years later.
No,
I'd
3
say.
years total. I
Yeah.
mean,
Jack,
but when you see
big
improvement, from putting your rookies in there that have no game experience and they're playing better than the veterans that were out there, just like what you said with your guy there, Richie, it's like, you got to like what you see. So it makes you happy with that. So
Jack, the big question with your Raiders is going to be, a couple questions here. One, your scouts and the guys that are giving direction to your head coach and GM, where does your GM start and end? So, for example, does Telesco remain involved all the way through the latter rounds of the draft? Or does he go round 1, round 2, and then say, peace out, this is up to you, my man, and then, goes gets a Mai Tai?
I don't know. I wasn't in the draft room to see it. I would think it's a collective effort.
Jack, the reason why I meant Mai Tai or any other fruity drink or any other nonsense like that is that
Mojitos.
Or mojitos. Yeah, I agree.
Don't ever say that again, Alex. What was that?
Mojitos.
He drafted the Bosa brothers with the Chargers, and they both like fruity drinks, and they're often injured. So I have to only assume that Telesco is of the same ilk. Considering,
well, he's got help, and I forgot the name of the assistant GM, which he probably will have a position next year for himself. They got from the Bears, and they got him like 2 years ago, and he's been really good too. So I think he's getting more help probably on those back end picks, which maybe he hasn't done with the Chargers, but we'll find out. Again, time will only tell. So let's go back. So after Devontae gets hurt, and then there's Mike Florio doing his thing. And he said that the Raiders, may trade him, which it's been an ongoing thing for ever since he's been on the team. So Raider fans are like, okay, whatever, because Devontae came out and said, I want to be a Raider. But ever since Carr left, it's been one of those things. And he had to come out and say, I want to be a Raider. But then there's that like button on Florio's show, and it's your head coach. What the hell? Come on, Antonio Pierce, keep this shit behind the scenes. It's like, why would you do that? I mean, maybe it was a butt hit. I mean, I don't know what he's doing. And then AP, and then Devontae's on a show, and he's getting told this live on TV. So if you haven't watched it,
on Kay Adams' show, he was told live on TV that his coach liked the news that he was getting traded. I mean,
there's a possible trade.
Jack, just real quick, to Devontae Adams' credit, he was a pro's pro.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he is a pro's pro.
To define his attitude and response as being stoic is maybe even underestimating and devaluing his response, right? Like,
he didn't. He was definitely a professional. He kind of did like the Patrick Mahomes, if the Trump thing. He said all the right things. And, it's like when they asked, hey, has your head coach reached out to you? And he's like, no. But just the look on his face, it's like he was bewildered. It's like
they're doing him so dirty. And
like, why is this? Yeah.
They're like, oh, yeah, come over, play for us. We have your college buddy QB. Psych. Guess what? We're shipping him out. And now you're just going to suffer with Minshew Mania or Aiden O'Connell.
Well, and that's another thing. After, Carr, then he supported AOC 12 to be the starter, not Minshew.
So what is AP
and
do?
Then,
Minshew.
Well, and then he goes on air and he says, how much, hey, the Raiders really wanted to get, Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
So he's talking about everyone but Minshew. So again, you can kind of almost see like some division right there in the locker room. After seeing the Cleveland game, I was like, wow, all these young guys really stepped up. These guys that came off the practice squad, off the edge, and they're playing strong and they're playing hard. And then I'm like, I gave AP props, and then this comes out, and I'm like, what the hell? And then a couple hours later, Devontae said, just like, in wanting to do preseason, I prefer not to do preseason. I would be preferred to trade. And then it comes out the Raiders are saying, we will give up for a second-round draft pick and, other considerations. It's like this.
It's happening.
AP is like almost destroying himself from within. And he did apologize about the whole thing, but man, that's
Damage already done,
a day
man.
late, $1 short.
Yeah.
Jack, do you not think that this might be an issue between GM and head coach? Like, for example, Telesco has traditionally been a penny pincher when it comes to draft picks, and traditionally picked first-round draft picks very well. But to coin a Rob Schneider term, we suck again when it comes to the second round and on in the draft.
Yep.
And like Robert, let's be honest here, Bolt Bros, Robert, and Coach Defense are all Chargers fans. There is a mutual consensus amongst all Chargers fans that Telesco is fantastic in the first round, but sucks balls.
And
Like
I would even argue he's not even good in the first round. He's just lucky. He had so many guys fall to him at places where they should have been drafted so much higher.
Right.
Hey, Sierra, who was the assistant GM that we got from the Bears? Because he's a good talent evaluator, and they kept him on. And like I said, next year he probably won't even be on the Raiders.
Champ, Kelly or whatever.
Yeah, Champ.
No,
Kelly.
it's Champ Kelly.
Yeah.
That's what I just said.
So Champ Kelly was originally with the Broncos for a brief period of time. I actually wanted him to be our GM.
Said you got John Elway.
And then he ended up going and following to the 49ers, and then went to the Bears and then over to the Raiders. And frankly, I think he would have been a better GM for the Raiders if I'm being honest. But I think what the challenge that the Raiders had is that promoting him to GM rather than head scout or something along those lines is a promotion that I don't think the Raiders were willing to make because they didn't want a first-time head coach and a first-time GM.
Well, they didn't, because the whole thing is that they look at the past. It's been, Mike Mayock and John Gruden joined at the hip. Then you had last year with McDaniels and Ziegler joined at the hip. So Mark Davis didn't want to do a rookie head coach and a rookie GM starting off. Say he wanted a veteran. And again, you have a Champ Kelly to help him out, and he's been good.
Right, but Jack, the point is that Champ Kelly was there before Telesco.
Correct.
And I think you saw some great later round picks for your Raiders that have turned out to be okay. And let's be honest, those were Champ Kelly picks. So at some point, your owner has to have a it's a controversial statement, so I won't bother making it. But he has to have a moment that he realizes is the right move to make, which is, I have a head coach that is a maybe, but Champ Kelly is a legit GM candidate and has shown to be that because he's been interviewed by 3 other teams every year for the last 2 seasons.
And that's what I just said. I don't think he'll be with the team next year. I think he'll be pulled away.
But why keep Telesco over Kelly? No offense.
Experience.
No offense to Mark Davis, but that's a short bus move.
I guess maybe right now you can look at it. We got both. So
no. But Jack, my point is that Telesco has a proven track record in the NFL.
Yeah,
his
proven record.
Right. His proven track record is not great. Clayton, how you doing, my man?
Well,
nice to see you.
I guess the question that I'd ask Robert: how many guys are drafted or still on your team that are starters?
Not
Bosa,
many.
Slater, obviously Herbert,
James,
but besides first round
Johnson.
picks,
not first round. I'm just saying who are starters.
who are starters?
Zion.
Yeah, Herbert, Zion, Slater.
Tulalupalu.
No, he was second round.
Derwin.
Are you? Yeah, Derwin. Derwin was a first rounder. Yeah.
Samuel.
I mean,
Robert, this is the point though. How many 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 6th, and 7th round and undrafted free agents are on your roster?
From Telesco's?
Sorry, from Telesco's era.
Maybe one or two, and I probably couldn't even name them because they're
Oh,
probably
wait.
just like depth pieces.
Right. So Jack, this is the point. So here's an example. Let's just like here, Robert. I don't want to like hijack this as like a Broncos podcast or anything, but let's compare A versus B. Okay.
All right.
So the Broncos have a track record, like a legitimate track record of pretty insane undrafted free agents that we've been able to obtain on our team that are, let's just say, top talent in the NFL. Like I have no other way of putting it. Like legit top talent. We have CJ Anderson as a running back who literally was a key cog in our Super Bowl 50 run.
Let's not go back, in time. Let's go with talk about that's kind of current. I mean,
Sure.
we're talking. Okay, let's talk about again with Champ Kelly helping him out. Again, we got Max in the 4th round. We had Hunter Renfrow in the 5th. Who's done well.
Jack,
We got. Wait a minute, I'm not done. And then we also got Hobbs. That guy's going to be awesome. Got him in the 5th round. We got behind Diablo, which I think was
Telesco.
No, it wasn't so, but a Champ Kelly. Champ's there with Tom.
So why
they're
they
working
hire
together?
Hall,
And you can always say, okay, so this year, so we're going to talk about, if we're going to bag on Telesco, yes, our first 3 round picks are starting.
Jack,
So maybe that's more than they've had when they were on the Chargers.
Champ Kelly has only been with your team 2 years.
Then that's outside of those guys then. Yeah.
Correct. That's my point. So again, I will revert back to my whole comment about the Denver Broncos and the other things that are there, because I think those are more relevant. Jonathan Cooper for our Denver Broncos, who is now showing out to be in a contract year as being undefeated, as being a legit pass rusher. Good for him. I wish he'd shown more of what he's showing this year, last season, and the season before. But regardless, every season to date, he is shown to be outperforming his undrafted free agent or 7th round draft pick, which is where he was picked, which is ridiculous. He is a 7th round edge rusher who has shown out. Right. And I think this is an important piece, which is in every team, it is critical that you pick up guys in the 5th, 6th, 7th, undrafted class in that block of the draft. And I believe that is what marks a team as having a good front office. Because every team that ends up grabbing guys that are in those rounds that are gems, that are like, I mean, Jack, there's no way you can disagree with this.
Well, I can't disagree with it, but I can't sit there and bag on Tom Telesco because this is year number 1.
First year, yeah.
But that's exactly why I can bag on Tom Telesco, because he had a decade plus of shitty drafts. And to even say that anything or any draft that Telesco did is good is just plain wrong. There's no way you can sit here and say that his draft was good, because there's been not enough time. Like we said this earlier, you need at least 3 years after a draft class to look back on it and be like, all right, that was a good draft. That was a bad draft. How many misses did you have? How many hits did you have? And I can look back at 10 plus years of Telesco's drafts, and he had 90% misses and 10% hits. And even those 10% of the hits were players that just fell to him. Derwin fell to him at 17. Slater fell to him at 10. Herbert fell to him at 6. Like, all these guys,
fell because he doesn't trade, right? He only had 1 trade in 11 years.
Correct. And that's my point, though. He's not aggressive. He doesn't go after anything that of team need. If his team is struggling and they're maybe contending for a playoff spot, he will not improve his team. He will not go into free agency because he just doesn't. He has such a massive ego that he thinks all these guys that I drafted. What was that stat we read, Alex?
But
he
at
made
the same
one
time,
trade.
But
trade.
you also don't know if that's the owner saying, I'm not doing that. Like, Mark Davis is certainly a different owner than the Spanos family. And I would think probably more
has already
aggressive.
doubled him in drafts or in trades.
Well, yeah, but sometimes it changes.
Well, he's going to probably make trade number 2 now. It's going to have to trade. It sounds like they're going to have to trade Devontae. So,
yeah, so, I'm not trying to defend.
I agree with Alex a little bit. I agree with Alex a little bit, which is you don't know if that's an ownership issue or a GM issue. However, what I will say right now with what I'm seeing from the Raiders is that there seems to be a building block problem that the Raiders have right now. And you're seeing the Chargers building what I would argue is the right way right now. And that is they got rid of Telesco and their team is being built what I would argue correctly. And what I mean by that is look at Alex's team right now, Jack. Alex's team built around their offensive line. They put a wall in front of their quarterback, and then they traded away a few draft picks to get the guy that they predicted and got right as being their quarterback of the future in Patrick Mahomes.
Well, and again, here's the thing, Tom, again, since it's his first draft, 2 out of his first 3 draft picks were offensive linemen. So trying to build within, and then you go out and sign a Christian Wilkerson on the defensive front, who's, one of the top free agents that were out. So again, you can see that the attempt is being made on the interior.
They are 2-2.
Right.
I mean, they do
and
have 2 wins.
I am willing to concede that some of Telesco's woes may have been because of the ownership, and with changes around the ownership of the Chargers, primarily Harbaugh.
Well, and I will. This is the one thing I will agree with you guys on.
Like I am willing to concede that this is not necessarily an A equals B scenario, which is Telesco is 100% the problem. However,
I got a raging pick.
However, I will say that when it comes to the draft, I have a hard time believing that the Spanos family was coming down from the top ropes and saying, "Thou shalt not draft X, Y, or Z." I have a hard time believing that. Like I just have a hard time believing that.
I mean, maybe not in the draft.
No.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not in the draft, but I mean, just talking about Robert said he's never made a move to help when there's an injury or stuff. I mean, that might be a Spanos thing of I'm not paying for that.
Well, and it can also mean that the Chargers also haven't been in position to really make the playoffs. So what are you going to do? Trade for guys?
2018, we were 12-4. We didn't trade for nobody. 2013, we were made.
But did you need any? Did you really need anything? I mean, that's the whole thing during that period of time. We got
blown out by the Patriots, 41-13. Yeah, I can tell you we needed something.
When you lose your top 3 wide receivers and don't trade for anyone, the problem is your GM. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. There is no other excuse. Basically, the GM either then launches a PR campaign to say, I am not the problem, which Telesco did not.
Big ass.
Or the problem is your GM. And you've seen other teams with other GMs here's an example. The Philadelphia Eagles GM launched a bit of a PR campaign when there was clearly a bit of a quabble between him and the owner, where they were in a position to be competitive, and he was concerned that Philly was going to probably turn against him. And he launched a bit of a PR campaign to say, I want to improve the team and blah, 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 and this, that, and the third. And you see this come out of various teams from various GMs who are trying to save face. They're trying to say, the problem isn't me. And I respect that because they have no other option other than a PR campaign through a PR firm to try to protect themselves, right? That's cool. I totally get it. Do you know who else did that, Jack? Mike Mayock with the Raiders, who had a PR campaign to say, well, those other draft picks weren't really mine. They were John Gruden's.
They were John Gruden's.
They weren't mine. They were John Gruden's. And do you honestly think that was John Gruden putting that out there? No, that was Mike Mayock. And that's because only one of them turned out. So why would John G be yeah, I'm the one who said I'm going to pick in the first round. Right. But my point is that this is proof that there are PR campaigns that are being put out by GMs to try to save face after bad decisions that were not their own, to try and ensure that the league and fans see them in a positive light. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, frankly, I think Mike Mayock was in the right with regards to that stuff. I like
Mike Mayock. I did.
I actually think John Gruden overstepped certain things.
Well, he did because he controlled the whole team.
Right.
He was the Bill Belichick of the Raiders then.
But I actually think that John Gruden was a great coach, but a crappy drafter. But I think Mike Mayock was a great drafter, but a crappy head coach. And I think the two just didn't mesh well. And that's cool. However, that doesn't change the fact that a front office matters for every team. And having a synergy between head coach and front office isn't critical for a team's success.
And we'll watch the game on Sunday. And again, since your Broncos have been, they've been so hot and getting sacks. I mean, literally dominating. I mean, ultra dominating. So it'll be fun to watch. Which the one pick that Raider Nation said, "Hey, we don't like," was DJ Glaze. They drafted him in the 3rd round. He was rated for the 6th round, but he's a big kid and he's got a good pass blocking, technique. And that's why they drive, because they feel like, hey, if we don't go get him this time, we're not going to get him. So it was the biggest reach in the entire draft. None of the Raider Nation liked it. Man, I was pounding my fist on that. It was horrible. But he played pretty good this last week against the Browns. It'll be interesting to see them play against, your Broncos. And, again, I've been wrong pretty much all season, except for this last week, which I was 1 point off. But I did say it can go either way, which did come down to one play with that holding call against Cooper. That could have changed it up. It was that close. I still have, again, going this week, I'm going to have my prediction here. And I think it's going to be another low scoring game. I don't see these offenses doing a whole bunch.
I disagree.
The defenses are playing well, and your Broncos are playing defense extremely well. You had your best running game last week. The Raiders had their best running game last week. I think it's going to be who doesn't turn the ball, again, like last week, who doesn't turn the ball over the more, and who does better on the ground. That's going to win the game, and I'm going to call it 2017 Raiders.
So my prediction is 27-13 Broncos, and it's not just
27.
27-13 Broncos.
Okay, I thought you said 20 to 7. Sorry.
No, 27-13 Broncos, and the reason why I think that the Raiders-Broncos game is going to go in that direction is we've seen the Broncos be able to level up against more difficult competition. We've seen Bo Nix. He's gotten better, but not as fast as I want him to. Like this is literally
man. He had 60 passing yards the last game.
Right. But he's gotten better. He has distributed the ball better given circumstances in the last 2 games. When you have a combination of let's put it this way, Alex. Aaron Rodgers struggled and looked like dog water in that game as well. And is there any dispute that Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback in the room here?
No.
Yes, no. Okay,
no.
Great.
No.
Right. So, let's put it this way. I have been on the Aaron Rodgers train of first ballot Hall of Famer for years now. He is that good. He is a great quarterback at the NFL level. And in my opinion, no, I don't believe Crosby's playing, and if he is, he's going to be hurt.
I don't know. I mean, everything's been about Devontae Adams. Crosby said he's going to play, but that doesn't mean he's going to play.
No, but my point is, even if Crosby plays, he's not going to be 100%.
No, even if he's not 100%, he's still better than most of the guys in the league. So,
I agree, but you've seen the Broncos play. And this is not to belittle the Raiders defense, but you've seen the Broncos play the Jets, who came into this last game as being an elevated, well above average defense, the Bucks as a well above average defense. And each of the 4 games actually to start the season for the Broncos have been well above average defenses for us to play. And I was clear about that when we started the show, which is the early stage of the season is an absolute gauntlet for the Broncos, which is why I also stated I didn't want Bo Nix to start, right? This wasn't that I don't think Bo Nix can be a good quarterback. This is I don't think it's a good idea to have him start the season. Now, what I have seen from Bo Nix in the last 2 games, not just 1, 2, is he has shown some mental fortitude, which is surprising to me because he hasn't really been presented with that in his career thus far to the extent as he has with the Denver Broncos. And it's been somewhat impressive. So that's good.
It's really going to come down with your defense is if the Raiders can pick up your blitz. Because, I mean, the Broncos blitz 49.7% of every snap against the Jets. So if the Raiders offensive line can pick it up and get it to the second layer, then we're going to see. But if they can't handle the blitz, then yeah. Then when you said, hey, over under 5 sacks, there you go. It'll really depend on picking up the blitz.
No, but it's not 5 sacks. So we've had in the last.
Well, you asked me, it's like over under 5 sacks. I'm like, that will depend if they can pick up the blitz, getting over or under 5 sacks.
Well, I think it's higher than that because in the last 2 games, and let's be honest, I think the Jets' offensive line is slightly better than the Raiders. I think the Bucs' offensive line is definitely better than the Raiders, like for sure. Okay. Now, in the last 2 games, the Broncos across those 2 past games have total between those 2 games 13 sacks. So let's just assume that factoring in divisional rivalry,
there you go,
that we split the difference between the 2 and we say, all right, the Broncos have 6 sacks. Right, because we had 7 and 5, so 6 is kind of.
If you're going to count the last 2, count all 4.
No, but my point though, Jack, is that as a rookie quarterback evolves at the NFL level, which is fair, and I've never not been fair to Bo Nix. I have been fair in my critique of him. I don't want him to start. I don't think he should have started. However, I do think that he is a quarterback of the future for my Denver Broncos. So
agreed.
Like all things.
But what does Bo Nix have to do with the Broncos getting sacks?
Well, if you're going to average the last 2 games, and I think that both teams have equal or better offensive lines than your Las Vegas Raiders, which is a fair comment, given the fact that the Raiders have not won like the Bucs have won this season, period. And they have not won like the Jets have won this season, period. I think that it's fair to say that if you're going to average the 2, that 6 sacks is likely, given the strength and the lack of injuries on the Broncos defensive line and the pass rush, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're going to average the divisional rivalry, let's put it this way. Even if we're going to go super low end and say the Broncos match 5 sacks that we had against the Jets.
I got to pop, fellas.
Bye, guys.
Chiefs win 21-14. See ya.
I agree.
Later, Alex.
What do you think the Raiders are going to do against 5 sacks on Minshew?
Whoa.
We're going to find out. Again, it's going to be unknown until it happens. Your Broncos haven't played the Raiders very well. So it's a divisional game. And yes, I think that changed things up.
Are you in Vegas? Or
I
Denver?
agree, but we're also like, I'm not trying to, like, this is very uncharacteristic for me because I am typically very harsh against my Denver Broncos, and I still am.
Well, it's because you hate the Raiders. It's okay. It's all love.
I don't actually. No, I don't hate the Raiders. Actually, I actually think the Raiders are a much better team than people give them credit for. However, I do think that when you look at the 2024 Denver Broncos, comparatively to the 2023 Denver Broncos, which is what you guys played last year, we are not the same team. So I am willing to grant that I basically predicted Denver Broncos losses against the Raiders last year. And guess what? I was right. Right? Out of all the Denver Broncos fans, I was one of the very few that predicted losses against your Las Vegas Raiders, and I was correct. This particular game, I actually believe the Broncos win, and this is why. One, our right tackle, Mike McGlinchey, is out. and I believe that Alex P is a better right tackle than McGlinchey, and I think that will show out in the game. I also think that we have better secondary with the play this season thus far from Riley Moss, McMillan, and Surtain as our core three who are not on the injury report and have played at arguably an elite level given what Alex listed earlier in the show.
Well, and that's the big surprising thing. The whole season for the Raiders, their run defenses, I thought it was going to be stout. I really did. They got smoked by the Chargers. Every game they gave up over 100 yards except for against Cleveland. But Cleveland did not have Nick Chubb. They gave up 95 yards. But the defensive backs have been playing amazing. I mean, like, when we lost Epps, he's a captain of the team. And then Polamalu comes in. He's been on the roster for several years playing special teams, but he's also had over 200 snaps at playing safety, slot corner, and he just impressed. Like, he was the one guy which I didn't get a chance to talk about. He was just all over the field. 4 tackles, 2 assists, a sack. I mean, he really just stepped up, and it was very impressive. And that is actually right now. And Bennett, who initially I was like, man, we got salary cap. Let's go and get Xavier Howard. Let's sign that guy. Because Bennett was a starter last year, and he got benched like game 4 because he didn't play well and sat on the bench pretty much the rest of the year. Now he's looking sticky. So I'm going to say the Raiders secondary is actually looking better than the Raiders defensive line. But yes, it doesn't help when both your starting defensive ends are out.
So another thing to consider, Jack, is that the Denver Broncos had their best running game this
They did. And I said that and I credited it. I'm like, that's when I asked you, is Estime even coming back? Because Williams actually looked good. That was the first game this season that he actually looked like kind of a form of himself.
Correct. And I think that's because of coaching.
Well, and I also think, again, what you said with your offensive line, too.
Well,
it goes hand in hand.
Alex P, in my opinion, has been the difference maker. I really cannot, I don't know how else to describe this to anyone watching the show. I really don't. I'm doing my best here. Alex P, who is our right tackle, is the biggest game changer on the Broncos offensive line. He is a mauler. He is an aggressive pass blocker. And he reminds me so much of Quinn Miners when you watch him play. He is super aggressive, super strong, and
sounds like JPJ.
He plays but JPJ, I told you, was going to be an elite player. Alex P.
No, I know. You was a UDFA.
Alex P had no business and has no business playing at the level he's playing right now. He's an undrafted free agent, and he looks like he's a starting caliber right tackle at the NFL. And
let's just see if it's just a one-hit wonder or if it's going to be consistent.
He played like this in 2023 and got hurt.
Well, and again, you talked about preseason, but you talked about Bo Nix in preseason, and he looked so good, but you're like, you downgraded him because it's preseason. So it's going to be kind of the same thing. If a UDFA is going against other UDFAs and, later round guys, well, now he comes into his first game and he looks good. Well, let's just see if he can continue on that or if it was just a one-time thing.
Alex P in all 3 games of the preseason last season leveled up. And I'm gonna quickly kind of break out what I mean by that. He started out playing against the Fours and dominated so heavily that he was brought up to the 3rd string after the first preseason game. He then, after that preseason game and looking like a dominant force, leveled up and played with the 1s and the 2s with the Denver Broncos in preseason and still looked and felt like a starting caliber right tackle. In that last and 3rd preseason game, he actually got hurt. Now, there's a legitimate question is, can he stay healthy? And that I will agree to say, I don't know.
Well, and you said, he did, play well in the last 3 games of the year, which is kind of what I talked about for Zeus. playing in the last 4 games last year and averaged over 100 yards per game, but it's at the tail end of the season when there's a bunch of injuries, guys are worn out. We're gonna see. This will be a good test for him.
So I think you misunderstood. He played in the preseason last season and was hurt all season with a season-ending injury.
Okay, then when did he play 3 games in the regular season? I thought you said he played in the regular season. Okay,
he played in the preseason and he leveled up each and every game and was certainly in a trajectory to make the 53-man as the number 2 right tackle / swing tackle for my Denver Broncos last season. Got hurt, was placed on IR. And then it seemingly, I mean, he's a big dude, so let's just call a duck a duck. When you're a big guy and you hurt like a knee or a joint, it takes longer for you to bounce back, right? Like it's just like you have far more weight on your joints in order to then bounce back quickly, right? Like it is what it is. Joe Alt will probably have a similar trajectory to get back to where he's at.
And I am kind of curious, since you said the right side. So again, the Jets lost their defensive end to Philly. The Jets signed Hassan Reddick, who hasn't played a snap. So who was the guy that was across from him playing against them the whole game? Because that would have been your number 2 defensive end. Who was that guy?
He went up against on several stops against Quinnen Williams and won.
So Quentin was playing on the outside. He wasn't playing defensive tackle or nose tackle.
They moved him to the outside on several plays. They also double teamed Paslowski to try to overwhelm him. He did not cave or fade. These are like, you can look at the film and see what the Jets tried to do. And I give the Jets credit because I would have done the same thing, right? Like, good for them. I would have done the exact same thing they did. They tried to overwhelm him and he succeeded. And this is why I'm looking at Quinn Miners and Plazowski. I actually believe that what you're going to start seeing is a bit of an oddity actually on the Denver Broncos, which is typically we have run on the left side of our line, which is the Garrett Bowles / Powers side of the offensive line. I actually believe that you're going to start seeing a shift with Paslowski in there, with Quinn Miners beside him. I think you're going to start seeing the right side of the Broncos line to become the more dominant run blocking. I was very clear. Run blocking side of the Broncos line, where you're going to start seeing Jaleel McLaughlin. You're going to start seeing Williams. You're going to start seeing some other guys break to the right side of the line, which will be a deviation from the current tape that is on my Denver Broncos, which is left side rather than right side. I think that you're going to see a shift. And the reason for that is Paslowski is a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. And that is because pass blocking requires better technique. Your Raiders are a perfect example of that, by the way. You have certain guys on your offensive line that are much better at run blocking than pass blocking, but your wide receivers are so good that you're trying to force pass blocking as opposed to run blocking. Now, eventually, your head coach might deviate and move more towards forcing run rather than pass.
Well, no, that's actually the opposite, Richie. It's like the Raiders have been forcing run. They would do first down, run, get a yard. Second down, run. Now you're putting yourself 3rd and 7. Now you have to go 11 personnel. But when they're actually, the 11 personnel has actually been their best thing they've done this year, because their pass blockers are actually, as a pass blocking unit, is better than their run blocking, because this was the best run game the Raiders have had all season. And it wasn't like all that great. They still didn't break 100 yards. So their pass blocking is actually better than their run blocking. And I'm looking for that challenge. I'm looking for, again, what you just said, running to the right side, which is actually the stronger side for the Raiders, because you got Christian Wilkerson sitting there. That's his side. So we will see, how, your offensive line does going on the right side, going against actually the stronger side of the Raiders' run defense.
You need the D line.
Yeah, and the way the D line, Christian Wilkerson, he's on. if you were lined up at defense, he's on the left side, which is your right side. So
you mean our O line versus your D line? Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
on that side of the field.
Well, I mean, you're then going against Quinn Miners, which
Mhm.
I'm sorry, that dude is, in a word, aggressive. Like they're like, I'm sorry, the dude's aggressive. Like, he has won an Angry Runs award from NFL Network like 4 times or 5 times, and he's not even the guy running the ball.
Well, and you could ask Robert this. All the big runs against the Raiders were not on the right side. They were on the left side.
Yep. That is facts.
Right. But so that would mean that, well, let's put it this way, Jack. If you have successful runs on the left side of my, well, you're talking the left side of my D line.
No, if you're on offense, the Raiders. So again, like the Chargers, the left side going to your left tackle and the left guard gave up more yards, period, than the right side. And even with Max Crosby being out, that is the stronger side in the way of the run stopping ability.
Oh, if you're telling me that Garrett Bowles and Powers give up and or on the flip side of that, don't allow for better run than my right side, I'd say.
Well, yeah, because again, that's your strength, right? Your strength is going to be running to the right. And again, that's where the Raiders' strength is going to be in the way of run stopping, is going to be on that same side.
Oh, well, I actually think that Pawlowski and Miners will likely hold up. I think where the challenge is going to be is Powers and Bowles. I think Bowles gives up penalties because he has the tendency to get beat. So on the outside, Bowles struggles with I want to call it duck moves or dips, where speed and spins are not good for him. He struggles with those types of moves. The other thing that Bowles doesn't do well with is rushes to the outside that spin back inside. Bowles seems to have a real issue with those types of spin moves where think of Dwight Freeney. Do you remember Dwight Freeney from the Colts?
Oh, yeah, he was a Charger too. I remember him.
So Freeney used to rush outside and then spin inside, and he used to do almost like a double pirouette to the interior and then pull inside and rush to the quarterback. And that was kind of his signature move, right? Like, was that like double spin move to get to the inside? And Bowles really struggles with that type of rusher. So if the Raiders can get
that's going to be interesting, because then I think he'll do well against Tyree Wilson, because Tyree doesn't have any spins. He's just like a bull rusher. But, they've, since of all the injuries on the defensive end and bringing out Chason, Snowden, and then Robinson. So last week between them, they got like Snowden, Robinson had 1.5 sacks between them, which Tyree hasn't gotten any. So I think, maybe we'll see some of those guys come out and play against him if he has a hard time with the smaller, shiftier, quicker guys versus the big bull rush guys.
The bull rush guys Bowles typically does well with. It's the guys that spin to the inside that Bowles struggles with. Powers is just trash. Like, I'm sorry. Like, let's just be honest. Like, I am the most honest Broncos fan that might exist on the internet, right? Like, I will literally slam my players where I believe is due. And Powers does not do well with certain types of players, and Bowles tries to overcompensate. So Bowles, I actually don't think is as bad as advertised. I think he's not great, but he's not as bad as he's advertised to be. I think what his problem is that the left guard has never been great for the Denver Broncos. Is that we've never had a great guard that matches beside him. And I think you've seen what happens with Quinn Miners in the same kind of thing, right? Which is Miners is, in my opinion, elite. He is incredible. However, his right tackle has been trash. Paslowski coming in is way better than McGlinchey, and now you've seen Quinn Miners look so much better. Well, now on the other side, you need to look at Powers. Powers is not great, but Bowles is not quite as bad as people say that he is, but he's also not nearly as elite as people say he is. Like there's a difference between A and B.
Mhm.
And so I think that Bowles is better than what most people say he is, but he's not nearly as good as what others say he is. He makes bad decisions. He overcompensates to try to lock to the outside.
Shit. Sounds like this year, one of our stalwarts in the way of Colton Miller, it's like he's just never come back from his injury. He's not playing like himself.
Right, but I think that's partially because of the other linemen that are on the line with him. I
agree.
Actually,
Cody Whitehair that guy is straight trash.
Right. And so you're literally exactly agreeing with what I'm saying, which is I think that if Miller had a better left guard beside
Which he will.
him,
He'll have JPJ this week.
right, then I think he will look much better. Right? Like JPJ is only 2 weeks into the league of playing solid games. So he's going to have a natural leveling up that will take place as games progress.
And he's kind of sounds kind of like your right tackle, and just being a nasty, mean, hard hitting, smash your mouth, football player.
That's my point. Exactly. 100%. Which is, I think JPJ is that guy. I think Miller is that guy as well. And I think with JPJ beside him, as the two mesh, like truly mesh together as linemen, I think the left side will be better.
Oh, agreed.
However,
that's something I haven't heard the report. So the Raiders' best offensive lineman up before the Browns was actually Parham, and he got hurt last week. So again, there's been so much stuff about the whole Devontae stuff. I haven't had the opportunity to see what the injury report is. So Mike Sierra, I know you're out there, brother. Go look it up. Tell me if Parham's going to play.
Right. So I just think that when you look at what the Broncos have done with teams that are likely further along than the Raiders in their development of their team, we have seen 5 and 7 sacks respectively. I would be surprised if the Broncos have less than 5 sacks. And I would be surprised, frankly, if we have less than 6 sacks. So I think that the Broncos, just due to that fact alone, are in a position to force Minshew to be uncomfortable. I think that they're going to force him to throw interceptions. And I think our Broncos secondary, we have McMillan, Surtain, Riley Moss, and PJ Locke as our kind of like top 4. So PJ Locke is a safety, and those other 3 I mentioned are corners. I think that we are going to put the Raiders in a difficult spot. Like I said, Jack, I think this is
it's going to be a smash mouth football game is what it's going to be. And again, it's going to be to me, it's a low scoring game. And again, I think my defensive, my DBs and safeties has been like the strength of the team. Bennett stepped up, playing sticky. Jack Jones is Jack Jones. And Polamalu, I think he's actually playing better than Epps is played. And of course, Trayvon, Trayvon's just been solid the whole year too. So, and then of course you can never forget Nate Hobbs, which, against the Carolina Panthers, that game right there, I'd sweep that one under the rug.
Well,
So
I just
score
think that
predictions?
I think you've had an ebb and flows on your Raiders team. My prediction remains steady. Jack, I was speaking to Ref Guru and Violator earlier today. I mean, those are stalwarts within Raider Nation.
Yeah, I usually try to catch that show before this show too.
Right. So Ref Guru and I have gone back years now. Violator and I have gone back years now. Robert, you may not know them, but they are like the Captain Jacks within Raider Nation. They are
Raider royalty.
royalty within Raider
Yeah,
Nation.
Violator's a football fan, black hole. I've been at games, not with him, but at the same games back in Oakland. And Guru is an ex NFL referee.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And who's also a Raiders fan.
Yeah. So looking at those guys there, they tended to agree with my general take on where things are at this season. They disagree with my score prediction, but I stand by it. And let's be honest, I've been pretty good this season so far. In reality, so let's just be real. I've been pretty spot on. If I got to be honest,
are you 4-0?
I'm 4-0.
You're 4-0, right? You predicted. 4-0 in your predictions, not.
Yes.
Yeah.
I predict the Broncos are beating the Raiders this game. My score predictions have not been spot on because that's a freaking crapshoot. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, that's you'll get double points if your score predictions.
Yeah.
Right.
If I'm bang on a score predictions, man, that's like a triple win right there.
Jack went 2-0 last week because he was only a point off of his prediction.
Like Jack, good for you on your score prediction last week because that's good for you. That's impressive. But my prediction for the Broncos this week is I actually have us as a 27-13 win against the Raiders this week. And the reason for that, while it's a departure from years past, because the Broncos have not beaten the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken, since 2019.
They've lost the last 8.
Yeah, the last 8 games the Broncos have lost. When I'm looking at where the Broncos and Raiders are at, I just think that the two teams are at different stages of their progression. I think the Broncos are further along, and I think that Broncos country is ready for that Raiders win. That is not the reason for my prediction, though. The reason for my prediction is I am seeing the progression that I need to see for my team to do the things that I need to see happen. And what I mean by that is we're getting interior defensive line pressure that happens to bode well against the fact that the Raiders' weak spot is, generally speaking, their offensive line.
Agreed. The offensive line was not very good. But like I said, we got a couple changes on that offensive line, and so we're going to see what happens there. And yeah, the Raiders have gone up and down. Right. I mean, up and down. You go from losing the Roberts team, and then going up and beating Baltimore in Baltimore, and then the whole world breaks out and the shit show happens in Carolina, and then a game I predicted before the season started the Raiders were going to lose to Cleveland, but again, then I saw what Cleveland, their injuries and the way they've been playing. Then that's when I said, "Yeah, I'm going to switch that one up."
Right. So
but I can't switch it up, Richie, until you beat us. Sorry, I can't change my prediction until you win.
Jack, I respect the approach because I actually have the same approach, generally speaking. However, I believe the Jets are better than the Raiders this season. I believe the Bucks are better than the Raiders this season. And my general thought process is Sean Payton has this team in a better spot this season with player personnel than we have been in years past. So my prediction, as outlandish as it may sound, because Jack, as well as anyone, I am as bullish on my Broncos.
Oh, you are. I think that's why Raider Nation loves you, because you beat up on your team almost more than the Raider fans do.
Right. So I am as bullish on my Broncos as any Broncos fan ever, perhaps in existence.
That's why you're not allowed on the other shows.
Right.
No, Richie's. I've been on with Richie a couple times, way back in the day with Captain Jack's show. So we met years ago on Captain Jack's show.
We did, and so I am, but nothing but realistic when it comes to my Denver Broncos. This season is a little bit different. I am upset that the Broncos started Bo Nix but I always thought that he could.
Are you glad that it started him now based on your progression with them?
No.
Oh, I wanted to see if he was going to do it,
So
Robert.
you still think that he would have been better suited to sit those 4 games, and you
Yeah.
might be 0-4?
No, I actually think that we would have been 3-1 if we had started Wilson or Stidham. But I will say that if your goal is let Bo Nix progress, if you think that he has the mental fortitude, like this is the difference. Like here I'm gonna call a duck like live on air for everyone to see, right? Which is, if you believe Bo Nix has the mental ability to overcome losses and actually do better, then what the Broncos have done with a 2-2 start is probably better for his career, right? Because he's have to overcome adversity to then win. And he's probably going to then always have a chip on his shoulder, regardless of how well he does in the NFL, right? Like, I think that's a fair comment to make. And I think the same comments can be made about Herbert and, others as well at the NFL level, right? Cool. We can kind of generally agree on that. However, if your goal as a Denver Broncos team is to win, truly just win outright, then I think Zach Wilson or Stidham would have probably been better for week 1 and 2. However, I'm willing to concede, given the progression that I've seen of Bo Nix, that he has learned from his mistakes. And but my comments there is that not every quarterback has that mental fortitude to sustain that type of embarrassment on the field. Some guys do, some guys don't. And that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But my general comment is, some guys need to learn a little bit more before they get to that mental fortitude. And I think that is a greater credit to Sean Payton as a head coach for making that call than anything else, because I think he recognized that Bo Nix has the ability to handle it compared to other guys. So good.
Well, and also, one thing, an X factor is it could be just a straight up leadership of, what Bo Nix brings versus a Zach Wilson's or a Stidham. Even as being a rookie, you can look at guys like Jaden Daniels becoming a leader, CJ Stroud becoming a leader and leading your team. And then if you're all the guys behind you believe in it, they're going to buy into it. So, which is kind of throws me from my team. I said this before the season started when they said Minshew was going to be a starter. AP said, we're going in quarters. So every 4 games. And I really thought, because they didn't want to bring in AOC 12 because the offensive line was a wreck. And, you're not getting the best guys that are out there. And you got a quarterback that has no running ability, but much better accuracy, much better arm. And be real, they both read about the defense about the same, not the greatest. So the whole thought was, hey, we're going to go into the Broncos. And again, I will say, I think this game is much tougher than when I thought before the season started because of your defense, Richie, 100%. So Jack, this is the game. This is the game
on that. I told all of you before the season started.
Well, again, I have to see it to believe it, right? Because we're fans from different teams. So right. I need to see it to believe it. And it's like, you coming into this game, if all this, hey, we got business decisions and stuff like that, I kind of thought, AFC 12 was actually going to be brought in. But now, after all that, again, we can't have any division of the locker room anymore. It's like, we got to try to walk the straight line. But if all that stuff didn't happen, I think that would have been a possibility. I really did.
I think your team messed up signing Minshew. Because not necessarily messed up in the sense that they should have just rolled with AOC after you had already basically started him the most of last season. So he already had that starter experience. I thought if you were going to bring in a quarterback to replace him, it would have been somebody that was a little bit more accomplished.
I think that the goal was to have him as a backup, because Antonio Pierce said it is your job to lose, and neither one of them showed they should be the starter.
Minshew did.
Neither one of them, but they just rolled with Minshew. Because again, I think in the offensive line is like let Minshew get tore back. You know, if he's going to get sacked a bunch of times and so forth, and then you bring AOC in when you get healthy offensive linemen.
Yeah, I mean,
but Jack, what you're missing there is what could you do with Minshew? So here's the flip side.
He has at least a little bit of scrambling ability where AOC 12 doesn't have any. So if your offensive line's poor, at least maybe you can extend the play a little bit to make something happen.
100%. But Minshew and every team he's been on with a better offensive line, he has always looked better.
Well, I think that's almost any quarterback.
Well, like that's a no-brainer. But my point is that
hey, Nutty.
AOC 12 requires a stout offensive line because he's a pocket quarterback.
Agreed. And I think that's the whole reason why neither one of them showed out in preseason.
Right.
And if you're going to let someone get beat up, like what you talked about with Knicks, hey, you're going to put a young guy in there and he's going to get beat up. Hey, let it be Minshew versus AOC 12.
That's correct. But what AOC 12 had that, say, Bo Nix didn't was he started last season.
So, okay, Robert, right there, right? He started last season, so he got game experience.
Yeah. Ride with him. Unless you're going to go with someone.
But what the Raiders' mistake was this offseason is they didn't fully level up at the offensive line position. They went 3 quarters there, but not all the way there. And Jack, I'm going to remain consistent because I believe in what I say, which is, what is the one thing I said about the Chiefs? When the Chiefs drafted Mahomes,
they
leveled up their offensive line to a level that they were like, we're good. Right?
I would argue that line was already good before he even got there.
No, and I agree with that too, Robert. Like I fully agree with that too. But the Raiders have not done the same with their offensive line. They have Colton Miller, who I believe is a staple as a left tackle. I am not arguing that. I agree. The answer is yes. However, left guard, center, right guard, and right tackle. The question is, who are your guys?
I know JPJ.
JPJ now. And again, no one expected Andre James to actually him and Colton regressed this year. Parham is better, way better on the right side than the left side. And they put their trust in Thayer Munford, who was a UDFA, and he played decent last year. He looked pretty good, but he's like in the wrong scheme. That guy is a power blocking, slow moving, huge man, but he cannot run. He's not mobile. He's not super agile in the way of doing his own blocking. And you mix that with the running backs that don't match it either in the way of Zeus. Zeus last year, behind Josh Jacobs, never ran in the middle because he has no vision.
Jack, I agree.
He can't see the hole, so they have to run him outside.
I agree.
Now they're running him inside, and they're using Madison on the outside. Madison should be the one running inside, and Zeus should be running outside.
I agree. So Jack, what you're basically telling me is that
they're mix and match. They don't have all the pieces there yet, for sure.
Correct. And there's a vision that needs to take place for the future of your team. And generally speaking, that vision comes from the head coach. So what normally happens, just generally speaking, I'm calling a duck here, right? Like, I'm not trying to throw AP under the bus. I'm simply saying this is what typically happens, which is the offensive head coach or the head coach just in general says, we are running this.
Well, and that's what AP says. He wants to go back to old school smash mouth football. But
great.
Here's the one thing that's the difference between all your coaches and my head coach.
who are your linemen for that look? Who are your coaches for that look? Who are your running backs for that look? Who are your wide receivers that are going to then seal the
Tight ends.
outside routes for that look? Who are your tight ends that will step in for that look? Like I completely agree with that as an approach, because you are playing in Las Vegas for 8 out of 16 games a season, right? Las Vegas is not known for its cold weather, so we can agree on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. However, for the rest of the West, with the exception of that dude over that away in LA, everyone else, the other 50% of the AFC West division plays in snow and cold weather. And if you're going to be honest, right, like truly honest with regards to football, like football in what I would argue is winter months is largely my kind of game.
Exactly. But you can say the opposite. If you go down to Los Angeles, or if you play in Vegas, you can have it like 70, 80 degrees, which is perfect weather for our teams, and then like for a guy like you, if you hit 70, 80, you've got to be in a tank top, flip-flops, and shorts and have a fan on yourself because you're not used to that. So it's the same thing. It's reverse.
Well, the point
is, if you go to Las Vegas and open up the dome and it's like 102 to 110, early in the season, and again, even later in the season, still just 70, 80s, 90s, because you're still in Las Vegas. So that goes both ways.
Right, but the point is, Jack, is that when you look at the NFL as an overall general cross section.
Oh yeah, it's more cold weather than warm weather. I mean, that's the one thing that Robert and I can both agree on. We got some of the best weather on the planet.
Right. So let's put it this way: I am better suited to play for your team in the winter months than most of your players are.
Okay.
Right, like I personally, like, let's put it this way. 2 days ago, I stepped on a metal nail and I thought it was funny. Like, I literally
I hope you didn't get an infection, dude. If you stepped on a nail, dude, you get a tetanus shot.
Yeah, tetanus.
Yeah, crap over that crap. I don't get tetanus. So, like that's my point, though, right? Which is, I come from a family that's built different. Like,
because we live in geographical different places in the world. When you live in California, you start getting thin skin,
right?
Because we're not used to that cold unless you're going up to like the Sierras to go skiing or something like that, visit for a day, and then come back.
Like my cousin is from California, and the rest of her family is from Northern Canada. So to say that my cousin is different from the rest of us is an understatement, right? Like,
might as well be a different family.
Right. Like, she is from a different family for all intents and purposes, right? Like, she's from like, here, let's put this in perspective, Jack. My cousin is from Huntington Beach. I know you know where that is, and I know
absolutely
where you know where that is, Robert. Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Expensive.
Right.
Yeah, very.
I live in central/northern Canada.
Out north.
All of her relatives live in central/northern/eastern Canada.
So how the hell did she go to LA, or excuse me, to California?
Marriage.
Ah.
Okay. So there's nothing wrong with that. We all adore each other. We are a family for sure.
Ask her the question: which weather does she like better?
She prefers California because she's a pansy. She grew up there. However,
hey, wait. Let's back up. Let's back up a minute. Right?
Exactly.
Robert, I lump you into that category too. Now, the point is that I come from central/northern Canada. -30 is funny to me. And that's Celsius, by the way, because that's like -35 in Fahrenheit. So good luck with that, my man.
Absolutely. That's when I say I'm moving.
I'm not going outside.
Yeah,
And-
forget that. It's like shoveling.
so-
Like when I lived in Colorado for a couple years and shoveling snow every single day, and getting the same thing. I think the worst, not close to where you were at, Richie, because you're way up north from Colorado. But when it got down to like negative 23 degrees, I'm like, dude, this stuff is like whack.
So, Jack, just to be clear, what was the coldest you ever had in Colorado?
That's what I said, negative 23 degrees. That was the coldest I experienced in the 3 years that I lived there. And I'm like, dude, this is whack. I'm like, this is dumb. And I'm
That's
like, you know what?
Fahrenheit,
Thank God I got a driveway that was facing south. And I'm sure that you guys probably have that stuff in Canada where you want a south facing driveway so it helps melt the snow versus a north facing driveway. It makes a world of difference. Shoveling snow sucks.
So, Jack, I just had to look it up because I obviously operate on a different
Celsius.
scale than
Fahrenheit.
you do. Right. So I'm normally pretty good at conversions, but that one was a challenging one for me because once you get into the negatives in Celsius and Fahrenheit, it gets very challenging. Okay.
I just know 0 and 32.
So to put this in perspective, what you just said is -5 degrees Celsius.
Ooh.
To me, I am wearing shorts in that weather.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
You're a freak.
Broken legs, skin knees,
Like,
rusty nails, shorts. You're probably making snow angels in your shorts.
Well, actually, I did that naked, but that's
Jesus
besides the point.
Christ. All right. Hey, gentlemen,
Exactly.
I do gotta hop off though. Have a great night. All right.
So the point here is that like -5 degrees Fahrenheit for me, like what you just described there in terms of your temperature wise, is a rounding error. Like I don't know how else to describe it. -5 is a warm day in the winter here.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. To me, right now, I was like today. I think it was 90 degrees. Here we are in October. It was 90 degrees outside.
Right. So, anyways, I think that when we look at the Raiders Broncos game, just to kind of get back to the show, and we'll kind of close this out. I think we're dealing with two teams that are at different stages of the spectrum. I think the Raiders are close, but not quite there.
Yeah,
Now-
I really felt like I felt like the defense has been a little bit of a letdown this season. But then we've had a lot of injuries. But I am kind of proud of the young guys stepping up and doing what they're doing. But we're going to find out. We're going to find out, when we play.
No, see, I don't think so. I think what the problem that you have right now is that the Raiders have not overcome the you haven't put enough pressure on your offense to do well. And so for example,
no, I can't disagree because the offense really hasn't shown up this year. Besides like a quarter and a half against the Ravens where they showed out and looked like, oh, if this is what you put it all together, this is what it could be. And now you're going to be minus Devontae Adams and for being gone, possibly with the trade. Yeah, it's the offense isn't looking that way. It definitely is not.
right.
But I'm most excited again, since your Broncos, the strength is your defensive front and has done so well in getting to the quarterback, drawing up these plays. And again, Raider Nation, knows that Gillespie has not been what we've been hoping for at all with this offense. When you have the most explosive weapons in all the AFC West, by far, bar none. I mean, it's not even close.
Raiders have speed. Raiders have speed. They do.
Well, it's not just speed, but when you have a Devontae Adams and you got a Brock Bowers and a Michael Mayers and a Myers, and then you got a Tucker out there, there's no one in the AFC West that has that type of talent for their weapons, bar none.
Agreed.
But the whole thing is that offensive line, Gillespie, and no running game. Zeus is not showing it. That's why I'm saying Madison's going to be the starter this week. He's going to get more touches than Zeus.
I agree. So, Carlos, just to put things in perspective, where I live here in Canada,
Carlos.
just want to say, first off, thank you for joining the show. click those like buttons, please. That little thumbs up, that really helps our show. However, just to give perspective to where I live, I just looked it up because Jack, as you know, I have to do quick conversions. When you get to negative, it gets really complicated, Fahrenheit to Celsius, that regard. I just looked it up. There will be 1 to 2 weeks at least where I am at minus 31 degrees Fahrenheit where I live. At least 2 weeks straight from start to finish. To put things in perspective, that's minus 31 Fahrenheit.
Well, it's a good thing you're a big boy, to shed off all that cold.
Right. So I have a beard. I am certainly a size that supports the weather that comes here. I'm 6'2", 250, give or take, depending on the year and time of year. My lightest weight that I've ever been since high school, and I mean, like, I think you called freshman. In my freshman year of high school, I was 215, and that was the lightest I've ever been.
Damn, I'm 6'2", 195, so my body don't like that cold.
So I'm like that big and like that tall. I'm just a bigger dude. I am built for this weather. I am certainly let's put this, like, I have yet to been below 225 since I was 17.
I'm kind of curious. There's a lot of still people out there. What do you guys, what do you guys see the score of this game being? Post it in the chat. I'm just curious.
I agree. I think that's a great question to ask of the chat. So my prediction is 27-13 Broncos.
And mine is 20-17 Raiders.
Right. And I think the Broncos running game is the difference maker here. We saw 130 some odd yards against the Jets, which I believe the Jets have a better D line than the Raiders D line is, especially, and Jack, this is a caveat here, with a Max Crosby being at less than 100%. I think Max Crosby, if he was at a better, health wise, like in terms of like injury, etc., would certainly be a difference maker. He is not. So I think that is a big difference for your Las Vegas Raiders. So I see this being a 27-13 game for my Denver Broncos. I think this is a difference maker for my team. Now, if Max Crosby and other folks, like truly other folks,
dang, Mike Sierra's right there with you.
I'm not at this point here, right? Like, this is a blowout game at 28-6.
Yeah, I don't see that at all.
I don't see that. I think
Raiders Zach 23-20, Sierra 28-6.
Yeah. So I think that we're gonna see. So here's Carlos, 21-16 Raiders.
That's Carlos. We're right there. I said 2017. We're on the same page.
So my thought process is the Broncos' run game in the last two games has leveled up significantly over the last two games, and that coincides with our right tackle getting more and more game experience. So even if I were to level off with what this last game was at 130 yards rushing, give or take, we saw Javonte Williams look more like he was in years past. We saw Jaleel McLaughlin look more like he was 2 years ago. We saw other running backs show out against the Jets, which I believe, in truth, without Max Crosby, has a better D line than the Raiders. Just, I'm being honest. I'm not trying to like belittle your team. I'm just being honest.
No, you can be honest, and you can even be dishonest and say, hey, this is what I see. I don't care for the team, and it doesn't matter. It's all fun. No, I agree. I think right now the Raiders defensive line has, what I said was the biggest disappointment this year is that the Raiders have only given up one game below 100 yards rushing. And last year, with the same group of guys was stout. So I don't know what's going on, why they're not performing. Maybe it's John Jenkins, who's 35 years old, has lost a step. and he's really the only true nose tackle on a team. Butler looked pretty good against Cleveland, but he's not a nose tackle, and the Raiders don't have another nose tackle. The guy
Right.
they had was McCall, but they ended up, letting him go.
So
And that was a big man.
So Jack, my whole, I don't want to call it a shtick because I actually think that it's realistic in the way that I approach things, which is I will call out my team where I believe we are lacking, and I will hype up my team where I believe that we are succeeding.
And I'm the same way. It's like right now the run defense is not looking great. I will say I'm pretty surprised with the, not counting Tyree in the way of like the last game with Janorius Robinson, Snowden, Chason, who they brought him off the practice squad. Those guys have actually looked better than Tyree. So I'm been impressed. Like even with all the injuries to Kuntz and Max, they've impressed more. The defensive backs have been looking fantastic.
Right.
Robert Spillane, your boy Singleton. Like I said, I've had my notes. I'm like, the only person that I said looked better than Spillane in the NFL as a linebacker was Singleton until he got hurt.
Barton showed out, and Jones, like the one guy that has shocked me this season for my Denver Broncos is actually the inside linebacker, Jones. He was a special teams ace for my Denver Broncos in years past. He was basically ridiculed to just play special teams and you'll be fine. Right? Like every team has a guy that's like a special teams guy who's like, the guy there. Jones was the guy for the special teams of the Broncos. However, he in recent weeks, I would argue, has shown that he is far more than just a special teams guy for my Denver Broncos.
Were you pounding the table for him before or until like he just showed out these last couple games? Like where you see it, you know what I mean? Like the UDFA Amari Gainer, Gainer, like UDFA. Man, he looked fantastic. And a lot of Raider fans want to see a little bit more of him too.
Right. So Jones was a UDFA. I was loving his special teams ability, but he never showed out on actual defense. Like true defense.
But did he get the opportunities to do it before this year?
He did, but he never really showed out. Now, what I have to give him credit where credit's due, which is some guys just need that extra time.
True. You got to develop them.
Yeah.
They may have the raw skills, the size, weight, speed, but not the technique, or no one had to read what the other team is doing in order to put yourself in the right position.
Right. And some guys, it just takes 4 years, right, of being in the NFL and figuring stuff out. Jones looks like he might be that guy. Another guy who was in that mold, and I have to look him up.
That's what we kind of thought about Munford until the Raiders switched their scheme from power blocking to zone blocking, and he just doesn't look like the same type of player.
2013. Another guy who he kind of reminds me of is a UDFA that the Broncos had at the interior linebacker position. He took several years to develop, was Wesley Woodyard.
Oh, I remember him.
So he was a great inside linebacker for the Denver Broncos. He was never seen until he was really good as an elite level guy, but he was ultimately an elite level guy. He had another 2 years outside of my Denver Broncos where he was a good player, and then he kind of fell off a cliff. He's a guy that I see Jones being, right? Which is he was great, but not like amazing through his early years. And then he showed out for 2-3 years and then kind of fell off a cliff. That doesn't mean that you need to belittle his great years with your team.
No. You got to cherish those.
Yeah,
when your coaching staff develop somebody,
you, right?
Yeah, you develop somebody that costs you on the cheap and to come in there and play, keep your salary cap down, and you get great play out of the player. That's always wonderful.
Correct.
That's what we all strive for, because you got the guys like the Devontae Adams. So, that's going to cost you a ton of money. And then you get, guys like a Trey Tucker who's on a rookie deal, and you can kind of see, the growth, each and every game, and the explosiveness, and you seeing a guy who's going to take over for that guy when he's gone.
Right. So, Raider Zach kind of points out a big thing with regards to most teams. And Raider Zach, if you followed the show for any period of time, I have been pretty consistent with my comments on this, which is
and Zach makes a great point here, Richie. It's like, just kind of what I said. The problem is with our O-line, don't think our scheme fits the player's strengths. And, that's something I've talked about, on the show. It's kind of a mishmash of like, some guys can play the power, some guys can play the zone, and you got different running backs. Some can play the power run in the way of like Zeus, but can't play the zone, and that's what we've been trying to do. So,
well, I have a question for you then. Whose fault is that?
I think again, they've been trying to switch it up, but again, it's Getsby. Everything starts from AP, right? But here's the one thing I'll say that I didn't get a chance to talk about earlier on AP.
Disagree. Here's where I disagree.
Okay, you can disagree. So let me say my thing, and then you can disagree me.
Sure. Yeah.
So the whole thing is that AP is not a coordinator. The one thing that every team in the AFC West has is you got a coach that runs one side of the ball. AP is not that guy. He's a defensive player, but he's not a coordinator. Okay, so he's not a coordinator. So the one thing about when they were talking about, Raider Nations, like, who do you want? Everyone's like between Harbaugh and Antonio Pierce. And it wasn't really until Max came out and said, okay, this is my guy. Then we said, okay, Max wants that. This is Max's team. He's the face of the team as a player. We're going to follow Max. But Antonio Pierce relies on coordinators to do those play calling and everything else. He's a player, so he can connect with you as a player to player. He can get you motivated, but he doesn't call plays. And then they didn't get the offensive coordinator they wanted in Kingsbury because Kingsbury wanted a 3-year deal. AP has a 2-year deal. You're not going to give your offensive coordinator a 3-year deal when your head coach, and I'm going to think probably Telesco is the same thing, a 2-year deal. I don't know his contract. But so you're not going to do that. So he said, I'm walking. So consolation prize. You get Getsby. Getsby's supposed to be, with the Bears, supposed to be a great, offensive coordinator in the way of running the ball. But the problem is his quarterback got half the yards that the Bears got on that team, not the running backs. We don't have a quarterback that can do the same thing. So that's where you kind of see the struggles. And again, you can only replace. They drafted 2 offensive linemen. You're not going to be able to replace anybody, really in the whole offensive line in 1 year. And no one ever expected Colton Miller to not be Colton Miller this year. Nobody. I mean, you figured he would pick it up. I mean, JPJ, let's put it this way here. Colton Miller's been the stalwart, and you even said it earlier, on this Raiders offensive line for years. And I agree with that. 100% solid. Never thought about, do we need to get a left tackle? No, not at all. But him not practicing, had that shoulder injury, missed everything preseason. And then he comes back in like 2 games, he gives up like 4 sacks. 4 sacks. That's not a Colton Miller performance. And then you get a rookie who's missed the same thing in JPJ that goes out there and looks good. Because I think, I think Colton can play the power or he can play the zone. JPJ, I see the same thing. But the difference is JPJ is lighting it up. Colton Miller hasn't seemed like he's recovered. I mean, I don't know if it's age or maybe like that the shoulders never healed totally 100% properly, but he doesn't seem like the same left tackle that I've been used to seeing for year after year after year.
Well, I agree. I think that'll be a big storyline for this coming game. Can your offensive line hold up against the Broncos D line, which has shown 2 to 3 games in a row now to have larger than normal sack totals? So that'll be a really interesting matchup. I also
Absolutely.
think,
That's why I said that. Since your defense is playing so hot, and like you said, you got your young, UDFA, on the right tackle. Two rookies are played, their first starting game and then improved, had the best running game we've had all year. So it's going to be a really fun matchup to watch between both offensive lines, both defensive lines, and just see how that kind of turns out.
I agree. So with that in
It'll
mind,
be fun to talk about this next week too. Just
I
so,
agree. So Jack has a if I'm not mistaken, I think you said like a 23-13.
No, I said 2017.
So 20-17 game. I have this being a 27-13 game for my Denver Broncos. I do think the Broncos beat the Raiders this week. That's my general prediction. Just like overall, I think this kind of breaks the 8-game losing streak against the Raiders. That's my prediction. Jack, next week will be interesting between the two of us. We'll see where things land. But with that in mind,
Absolutely.
guys, this is the end of the show. We're gonna go out on an interesting note, to say the least, with the Raiders versus Broncos, because why else would the AFC West Wild Wild West show exist? As the most vaunted rivalry within the division.
I agree.
We will go ahead and end on that note. Thank you all for joining the show tonight. Huge numbers on the show. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And guys, until next week, where the West Side's the best side. Peace.
Salute.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out.